5 on that group I counted.
I think so. I think that's.
And that's 9.
Oh, you're looking at me,
So I'm trying to
Brandon?
think that's not an issue.
How come there's only 8 names?
No, there's 9. No.
Who's missing?
I don't know.
Oh.
First is Jody, Travis, David,
Charles.
Nope, there's only
Charles.
8.
Where's
Who's
Charles?
Lamore?
Yep.
And I haven't heard from anybody saying they were gonna be here today.
Oh, we are missing Charlie.
Oh.
Yeah.
There it is. So we need an extra chair?
I think we're good.
Okay. Oh, all right. Oh,
So then
here.
with 9, I can't have 5 on that subcommittee, can I? That's quorum.
We can have 4. Four.
And maybe we have subcommittee.
That's over the last 20 years.
That explains the look on your face.
Yeah. Racing here.
I thought there was something else going on there. Ellen's sitting out there.
So, which committee we got?
Maybe we'll go with that. We could only have 4 people. That's why I was counting the numbers here. And we can maybe tell, ask that, we're talking about if we have a major J subcommittee, we can only have 4 of us on it.
If there's too many, I'm happy to.
Well, we thought maybe this time with him, or with the election thing, like, whichever, we'll take whatever someone wants to do, but because we lost Carolyn. Because that's set up in the air that after this meeting today, then if we still want more information, we put it together, that meeting, we'll check it later.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Okay.
How are you?
I'm taking it
Welcome
off.
back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And just a, reminder to
Speak in, talk loud.
turn your mic on. Keep the mic close. I've been trying to remind everybody to keep it off for a month, so don't be
Yeah.
offended, okay? I apologize if you know.
Phone's off.
Okay.
Phone off switch quit working inside.
Really?
Yeah.
When it's only when you're.
At the thing the other night when they told us to turn them off, I went to do it and they didn't turn them off. Hi, stranger. Haven't seen you in a while.
How are you?
Good, we were talking about you last night.
You mentioned me and my shirt tucked in my pants.
Just-
You didn't mention me, I tucked my shirt in my pants.
I think it's because I lost 130 pounds and I can actually get my shirt.
Right. Sorry.
I didn't realize that's where you were going.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
thought you were thinking he looks professional.
Isn't it nice to be able to tuck them out
What,
again?
isn't
It
that a
is,
nice
not having to
feeling?
wear the blousy feeling of. Yeah.
On your own, you didn't even go to a food addict meeting.
Well,
My
no, but
cohort.
I went to,
You brought big guns.
How you doing, David?
Good day, Thursday.
Good.
Yeah.
She was the one who said,
Oh, you know. Okay, I was like,
See you,
"Yeah."
bye.
We were just going to a restaurant, yeah, it's like they set the food for you. And she taught me how to act out. She's also the one that had me get off 20 minutes of every night.
Hey there.
Hey, Travis.
Having
I do too, where the equipment.
Yeah, but med school.
I think I found.
Perfect, my wife. You remember?
We will call the meeting to order. This is the Parks and Recreation meeting, the Commissioners' meeting, September 23rd, 4:30 PM. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Young,
Present.
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Boley,
Present.
Commissioner Cohen,
Here.
Commissioner Caldonado,
Present.
Commissioner Crawford, Commissioner Diaz,
Here.
Commissioner Goodman,
Here.
Commissioner Lamort.
Here.
Great. Report on the posting of the agenda, please.
The agenda for this meeting was posted at City Hall, the Leisure Center, and the Palm Springs website on September 18th as required and established by the policies and procedures.
Great, thank you. Regarding the minutes, has everyone had a chance to review them? I know they're from many days ago, but were there any changes or corrections necessary?
Well, I have a
Commissioner
question. In the correspondence section, the letter was dated 16 September, which obviously it was meant for this commission meeting. So I'm wondering if we can discuss that, or perhaps when we're doing the administrative, picking subcommittees and officers, we can discuss what that letter talks about.
I believe, if it's not in the agenda, although it came in the package last time?
No, this was correspondence for this meeting.
Yeah, it was a correspondence that somebody sent. It was at the last meeting, but it's dated September 16th
No, it was for this meeting.
for this meeting.
Last week.
We got it with, when she sent the agendas and
That wasn't
everything.
for, that wasn't for the last meeting. That was for this meeting.
Well, it was in the package.
So it's correspondence and can be read then?
Yes.
It'll be read out?
Yes, so the last time we had correspondence, the commission requested that we send it out prior so that you guys could review it
Absolutely.
and discuss here.
Great.
Perfect, thank you.
So that brings us to correspondence. Oh, actually, no, we need, back to the minutes. We need to get the approval on that. So is there, yes, Commissioner Armstrong?
I had a question on the minutes in terms of both on the approval of the minutes and also the elections. There are people that are noted as abstaining who weren't present at the meeting. And like Commissioner Navarro, Commissioner Goodman, it has you abstaining when you weren't present.
We're really absent.
So correcting that. Any other issues? Do we have a motion to accept with the corrections noted?
So moved.
David? Second?
Second.
Charles? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? You would have to abstain. Correspondence. Can I ask you to pull and review it? Yep.
Okay, so we had two correspondence items this time. The first one was from Miss Julie Knowles, and I will read her letter directly. So she is representing the Ruth Hardy tennis community. She says, "Unfortunately, I am out of town until September 29th, so I will not be able to attend the Parks and Rec meeting next week to share my thoughts and concerns. I would like to make some comments and ask questions about an agenda item. Over the last few months, several vacancies have arisen for commissioners on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and back in July, it was proposed without publication to appoint Frank Alvarez to the commission. You are now aware of the need for closer scrutiny of applicants, and thankfully his applicants was turned down and alternate and an alternative candidate appointed. However, the new appointment appeared to have been completed behind closed doors. At the July 10th meeting during public comments, Commissioner Ellen Goodman asked that in the future correct procedure should be followed and requested that a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission be present at any future interviews. Obvious choice if available, Chair Les Young. That is what was minuted under item 1G after the meeting, but on the agenda for the city meeting on 18th of September, under item 1U, it states that a subcommittee consisting of council members Holstage and Middleton will immediately coordinate interviews to fill vacancies. No mention of the inclusion of a representative from the sitting Parks and Recreation Commission. My question, therefore, is why was Chair Les Young not been included in the interview subcommittee? I hope these comments will be seriously considered and the city keeps continuity of its rules and regulations at all times. Once again, we as a group of serious, sports-minded people appreciate the work of the Parks and Recreation Group and will continue to support their activities in a bid to improve and maintain our facilities. Regards, Julie Knowles. The other correspondence item was from Mr. Eron Ike Rosenberg, and he sent us a postcard in regards to the park premises over by, I'm sorry, this is really hard to read. Sunrise Library. In particular, he is talking about the grounds over by the Mizell Senior Center, the stone-structured water fountain. It needs to be repaired.
Great, thank you very much. Now, we cannot comment on those items. We may be able to request at the end of the meeting during comments that something be brought forward for agendizing for the next meeting. Thank you. Public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address Parks and Recreation Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it can generally not take any action on items that are not listed and posted on the agenda already. Each speaker will have 3 minutes assigned, and if you'll just come up and sit right here at this chair, it would be great. Remember to turn on your mic and speak clearly into the mic so that we can get it into the notes. Thank you very much. So anybody who would like to come up and speak, please come forward. Yes. And introduce yourself as you do. Thank you.
My name is Stuart Bussian. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm bringing forward a recent tree planting project throughout the city's parks. One of my issues is, does this commission review and approve that plan? And if not, I have some, I'll provide you with some review comments. As far as managing that project, I don't know how a tree planting project can be scheduled in August when it's 112 out. Many of the trees in Ruth Hardy Park died because of the heat and, lack of water. And also the quality of the trees, many of them are substandard to, California nursery grades and standards. I don't know how substandard trees are being accepted in city parks. So again, there's some lack of follow-through or quality control. And the species selections are questionable. We need shade trees in our parks. And so some species like Melaleuca should be eliminated from the list. Why isn't the city selecting trees like mesquite or desert willow? Proven tree species that perform well in the parks. There's some species that are not performing well. I have some pictures here as exhibits. So I have a request. I know this is probably out of order, but forgive me for not knowing the protocol. that 3 of those trees are replaced. 2 of them are at the library along Barista Road, and then 1 is in Victoria Park. Now, also, while this was going on, here are some examples of some of the trees. In Sunrise Park parking lot at the senior center, currently there are 10 vacant spots for trees to be planted in this parking lot. Why aren't, when we're doing a tree project, why is a parking lot void of 10 trees? It's very obvious.
So your
Again, I don't know if
You have
somebody.
about 10 seconds
Okay,
left. Thank
and
you.
then again, a brand-new planting project at the swim center. Brand-new planting, no trees. So I'm concerned about the, lack of oversight on tree planting projects going forward. So thank you.
Your time is now complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, everybody. Mary Bartslow, USAPA Pickleball Ambassador. I haven't been here for a while. I'm doing a lip cancer thing, but I just met with Cynthia Alvarado a couple weeks ago, and we wanted to upgrade you on what's going on with teaching classes. I want to congratulate Les. Just saw your billboard on the way here. Dave Paquette medaled at regionals, and so did I. So we were well represented from the desert at regionals in Fountain Valley. And go pickleball. We want to thank you so much for the Demuth Park upgrades and what Cynthia's done with the windscreens and the lights and the painting and the nets. And Dave's going to address a little bit about that, but I'm mainly here to answer any questions about the proposal to offer classes and tournaments, which Cynthia and I have done a plan. I brought a hard copy of what I emailed you. And then the first flyer of kick off the fall round robin. So we're getting to that time of the year again. And we've got our whole system in place with the 70-30 split. And I'm honestly just here to say thank you for your support. And it's really good to have a public venue for pickleball out here. It's a lot of clubs. A lot of clubs have put in 4 courts and they wish they had more. And it's nice to have a venue for everyone. And I'm just here to answer questions. I know it's on the agenda, it's item 4, and I'll still be here if you need to ask me. Otherwise, that's why I came, because Cynthia and I talked about it last week.
Great. We appreciate your coming, and I would ask that you hold off until we bring the item up, and then we'll call you back to the table if there's any questions.
All right, great.
Thank you very much.
Go
Mary.
pickle.
Go pickleball.
Go pickle.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is David Paquette. I am the president of the Palm Springs Pickleball Association. I also want to thank the city and you guys for getting those 4 new courts at Demuth Park. We really appreciate it. They're going to be well needed as soon as the weather starts to cool down. We're already getting crowds in the morning, early in the morning. The only issue really is there's no shade there. We have no shade over the bleachers. So you kind of cook, starting at around 9 o'clock in the morning. We kind of got to get back in the grass area there where there's some trees for shade. So it would be great if we could do something for shade structures over the bleachers, the 2 sets of bleachers that are there. The other thing is it'd be nice to have some kind of a storage shed. I've made up some dividers that we use on the courts, and I'm having to kind of haul them back and forth, and we've got a ball machine, and we'd like to keep extra paddles and stuff, but we have no place to store anything. So it'd be nice to have some kind of a portable storage shed in that area so we could store this stuff and not have to haul it back and forth every day. Other than that, again, thank you for all the stuff that you guys have done to help pickleball. And hopefully we can keep growing this sport in this area because it's becoming hugely popular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Kelly Meenan, and I'm here for the dogs. So, thank you for listening to me today. I'm going to talk about the Palm Springs Dog Park. I have tons of pictures here of our dog park compared to all the other dog parks in the Coachella Valley. If you guys can't hear me, please let me know. I spoke to some of your people, and I have been told.
Sit in front of the mic, please. Thank you.
I have been told that we do not get misters because you guys, that the dog park before it's been misused to have faucets for the dog park and have misters. How do I go about challenging that? Because every other dog park in Coachella Valley has misters and has faucets. And we don't because we abuse the water. Well, if we abuse the water, then shut down the park at night time for the homeless people can't come in and take showers. But then we have a homeless problem, don't we? And then they smell bad, so let them take showers. I just want you guys to see, pictures speak loads. We have a fence, it's an artistic fence around our dog park. It has become unsafe. And it's been called to my attention that the artist is not very reciprocal in coming and fixing the fence. The big dog park fence over on that side, dogs fit through the fence every single day. I've almost lost one of my dogs to that because they ran into the street. So I can get a petition going again for this, but to let you guys know about the dog park, it is unsafe for our dogs, and that's the one place that we bring them to stay in the fence. Dogs go out. We have to wear bumper things around our dogs, and that's just unsatisfactory. And the fence is not opening at the entrances. It's always breaking down there. I also wanted to talk about extending the fence. If we could extend the fence on the small dog side, we would increase that space by 50%. That's insane. And I don't know why we haven't, because the small dog side is so heavily used. We need that extra space that is utilized by rocks. And I mean, that's it. There's 10 feet of rocks before the sidewalk. And so we would like to see, I know it's an artistic fence, so we have come with a lot of roadblocks in that, but I need to get directions on how to get that fixed for it's safe for our dogs, for it's safe for our consumers, and last but not least, I know you guys are shutting down our dog park October 25th. We are begging you to change the rocks to peat gravel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Kelly, do you mind leaving those with us, and we'll have them duplicated and passed around so everybody gets to see them? If you could just give them to Janet. Thank you very much. Do you need a setback?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Mattis, and I've been coming here for 40 years, but now I'm full-time. I'm also here for the dogs. And since I speak for a lot of people in the community, and we're there every day. I'm there morning and evening, and everybody is worried about the shutdown. And the only place we have to go is Demuth Park in that tiny little enclosure, and it's disgusting in there. There's no water, there's no shade, there's no benches. And right now, passing by, it's all yellow on the inside. There's hardly even grass left inside that enclosure because they use it for the dog shelter also to take dogs out there and walk, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people lose for 2 months out of every year a place to go and a place to gather. They lose contact with friends. A lot of them are older, and it's just really, really sad, and everybody's very upset about it. There's also a problem with the landscape. I'm going to go to the dog park behind here in City Hall. A branch cracked down, a very big one on the Palo Verde the other day. This morning they put up cones. We are praying that they don't cut down the whole tree and that a proper arborist comes and deals with it so that half the tree is saved because half of it is still good. And maintaining the trees and all the landscaping in the dog parks has always been really difficult. And the other thing is we would really love it if the rocks were gone. Something else has to be figured out. And as to the grass and shutting down the park every year, perhaps we can have a better idea for the grass, because, you know, I was living on the East Coast, and it's cold, it's hot, it's everything, and they don't close down Central Park to reseed it every year. It just, you know, and there's 100,000 people on the lawn, heavy usage, and somehow they manage to keep it going and open all the time. So if somehow in the future it could be figured out how to do that, it would be a really good thing for this city and not dispossess all those people for 2 out of 12 months. And by January, it's a mud pit anyway, because the grass hasn't had time to establish itself properly, even after 2 mows. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another speaker?
Hello. My name is Sydney. My name is Sydney James. I am a full-time resident of Palm Springs. I am also here to talk about the dog park. I'm here for the dog owners. The dog park is not maintained, period. Other than taking away, emptying the trash containers, day to day it looks exactly the same. I see people coming in and out, but there is no effective maintenance. The areas where they're for seating, of course, there's dog pee everywhere. It seems like occasionally they could be washed off, like every day. And as the other people have said, it's an extremely well-used facility. And for it to be so badly maintained, gates, chairs, people bring chairs. You know, I brought 6 chairs, so there'd be some places for people to sit, and other people have, it just seems very sad that something can't be done. And the fact that it's just closed down and an alternate facility is just a fence in a field, it's just not right. And after the 2 months, the dog park looks exactly like it did the day you closed it. I see very little, if any, change. That's it. Let's take care of the dog park. It's a well-used, very appreciated facility by the residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional speakers? Great. We will move forward to the city manager's comments and report.
So, Mr. Chairman, since I'm next on the agenda, we do it as part of your Measure J?
Absolutely, if that works.
Sure.
Please join us. Thank you.
Ready?
Yep, right now, sir. We're going to combine item number 1 with the city manager's comments. And we have both Dr. Reddy and Marcus Fuller joining us today. Great. Thank you both.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for letting me join you today.
Oh, you're good.
So as I recall, we wanted to start to join you on somewhat of a regular basis to let you know where we are with the Measure J. And those are important issues. And also I would note, talk a little bit about the dog park since that issue's come up. So we passed out the list. So what was passed out is the list of Measure J projects that have been going over the years, and then obviously the ones that we're actively involved with, not the least of which are the obviously the new restrooms and then the lighting. And there's a couple things I wanted to ask you about those and bring you up to date. And Marcus and other staff can give you some specific details. But before we do that, on the dog park, so this is one of those things where there's easy answers to it and no easy answers to it. The easiest answer to closing it, you know, we have really no choice but to do that. You know, and I've suggested this long ago. Let's just come in and resod it 4 times a year. I mean, it's basically throwing money at it. It would be certainly more expensive, but it would, you know, as a policy matter, if it's that important, then, you know, maybe that's something that we can consider, and what would that cost, and is it worth doing? So that's one thing. Clearly, the other part is that's an overused dog park, you know, sort of a victim of our own success. You know, that's our community. We love our dogs, and we want the dog park. So that's clearly inadequate. we have to have a second big, nice dog park. So obviously that, I think, needs to be on your agenda for, well, what Measure J can do. And what I would recommend is that, as important as a priority that is that the board, you agendize it, you discuss it, and pass a recommendation resolution, and I take it to City Council and make sure that that is front and center as part of the budget capital discussion going forward. And your vote, you speak through your votes, and your vote on that will give it certainly, I think, the political weight it needs on a policy matter to get it, make sure it's on the council's agenda as they start talking about capital projects again. So I would recommend that.
Do you have a timeline that you would recommend us to get something to you?
Well, as you know, we'll be into, we're just sort of starting the new fiscal year, but this is one of those things where I think it's sort of an ongoing conversation. I would do it immediately. Now, it may ultimately manifest in next year's budget, but depending upon if council wants to see this as an important project, we can jumpstart that, because obviously there's a long lead time of what are we going to build, design, and where. And so then that sort of starts to match up with the budget process as we move into the new fiscal year. So we sort of can cut 6 months off that process that way. So that's how I would approach it, because there's no question, and I think City Council's recognizing this, that it's going to need to have another park.
Great.
And/or maybe it's some improvements to the other one that we've sort of temporarily done over at Demuth.
So the funds that you have allocated here for the dog park renovations, there's nothing specifically listed as to what those renovations are going to be? That's just the amount?
Well, those have
been
already
awarded.
been completed. Those are the ones we did, and Marcus or Stacy, if you can, maybe you can.
Can we find out what it was?
Those were-
Oh, that was the
Was all-
renovation of the dog park, I think,
The big
3
one.
years ago.
3 years
No,
ago.
the one right here by City Hall. It was the only one that we had.
Right, 3
And
years
it
ago,
was-
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the
So that
cost.
being said, you clearly need to do it continually.
Dr. Reddy, I just want to thank you for coming. How I got involved in city government 10 years ago was because of the dog park, right? And I have a website called PalmSpringsDogs.com, and I haven't updated for a while, but, watching this and hearing the community come, we just go through this cycle again and again. We have people get really upset, and then we do a little bit, and our problem is maintenance and that overuse, because, the master plan calls for a second dog, or suggests a second dog park. And you're correct, it's a victim of our own success. I mean, past city council have said, if we can't maintain that one, why should we do another one? Well, we should do another one because we'll reduce some of the maintenance, yeah. But, over my 10 years, I just think there's a pattern, like all these things that Kelly said many of them are really correct, but how do we get out of this cycle of having the community get really, really upset? If you look at the master plan, which is outdated, obviously, the park has been being used more now than when that plan was. But when I did my calculations, especially the small dog park, square foot by square foot, day in and day out, is the most used public space, our park space in this city. And it just can't handle it. It doesn't have the capacity at all to do it. So I think we need to get out of this cycle. We've been in for 10 years, basically, so.
So the two answers are obviously the additional dog park facilities, and then, talking about the maintenance. All right, so what are we doing there, and what can we be doing different, and what is the gap? So we've obviously, we've increased it to 3 times a week, the maintenance from 2 to 3 times a week. So I think we need to take this universe of complaints that we're hearing, and, addressing them, there's a lot, one by one. So the maintenance, what exactly isn't happening in the maintenance? The waste cans, the list of things. Now, I'm not opposed to if myself or Marcus or Stacy, we have to, and a member or two have to go over there every day for a couple weeks to find out what's going on. We did that a few weeks ago. We thought adding the third maintenance would be helpful. Now, if that's not being effective, the question is why, and what else do we need? Do we need it 4 days? We'll do 5 days a week. I mean, what is it that's optimal and not being done? And then there's the universe of things that maybe we can or can't do anything about. If a small dog is in the large dog and it gets through the fence, is there a netting we can put around the bottom of the fence of some sort? Those are all things that we can do. It's just, the assessment and then going forward and doing it. Okay, so that's sort of, I'm open to those suggestions, and I have to rely on my staff to tell me what the best courses of action are. Yes.
Well, Dr. Reddy. One of the things that I remember as we redid the park 3 years ago, there was a plan that set a diagonal, I guess, fencing opportunity so that we would actually close down only half the large dog park and reseed it, and then switch and do it so that the other side would get reseeded. I can't remember why that didn't happen, but I've not seen that engaged
Is
at
that
all.
a possibility? Sort of a bifurcated park reseating?
I mean, that will only take care of the large dog park.
Right.
It wouldn't have taken care of the small dog park, but I thought that was in the plan, but then when it was produced, it wasn't done.
Right, we had talked about it, and ultimately the plan that was approved has just the perimeter walkway that goes around the whole park, and not through the center of it. So, but you're correct. We had talked about trying to, divide it up into sections that we could do the bit by bit overseeding. But at this point, we'll just do the whole park at one time.
So, other questions or comments on the dog parks other than agendizing it for our next meeting?
If I just may say, I think at the end of our agenda, we have committee structures, and so there has been a existing subcommittee for dog park and pretty passionate folks. So if we could make sure that we have a dog park subcommittee assigned at this meeting, then I think that subcommittee can start working with the city,
And what I
creating
also
some
suggest
solutions.
is I know Stacy would be open to this, and we've also, one of the things we've done, we've added some additional staff for Stacy to help. She has an assistant now. So I would suggest if you have this subcommittee, at least for the time being, why don't we, if it's weekly or bi-weekly, Stacy or her staff will meet you there. And we can just make sure, is maintenance doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are we at least hitting what we need to be doing with the maintenance ongoing? Because you're right, when you see these pictures, like, well, why is that dirty pail there, and why is that? So, I know we're trying our best, but I think we have to get our arms around exactly what's not happening, and that may be a way to do it, and I certainly would offer that resource. Because I know you want to fix it, and we want to fix it. Right? And then finally, before we leave that, please pass a resolution as a priority saying, let's do another dog park. And I will do my best to make sure that's always in front of the city council as we have these discussions. Now, with regard to the other capital projects, the big news is, and this is like so exciting that all of you are going to be jumping up and down, is we got 3 bids for the new downtown park site. And we hope to have a contract to council at the next meeting next week to actually do a construction. Are we still on track for that? We're thinking? All right. So, and it's within budget, 8 million, it's about 7.5 million is the bid, and the budget's about 8. So we're going to be moving forward on the downtown park site. That's pretty exciting. So that's obviously your biggest Measure J project. What I'd like to say to you on, and again, staff can give you more detail, but on the 2 issues in front of you now, Measure J projects, the restrooms and the field lighting, with regard to the restrooms, we have on-call architects that we need to get going on the design. But what I need to ask of you is, what is it that we want to do, really? And I don't know if that discussion, and maybe you've vetted through that some, but what is it that we want to do? Is it, is it all unisex? Is it still separate men's and women? Is it we tear it down and start over? Is it renovations? And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, maybe you've had some of that discussion.
I think we actually turned in a report, and I want to say a year ago that those recommendations were made. So we may be able to pull those back out again and go through those.
Because once the architect starts, they need to know what they need to design. Because the goal is they're designing it generally based on your direction, what it is that we want. And then as it matriculates up through the council process, clearly then we know what we're going for is what's desired. In essence, I want you to drive this process more than just what the architects or us guessing. Okay?
Absolutely. Yes, Commissioner Goodman.
I just wanted to make sure I heard this correctly. You said the restrooms in the parks were part of Measure J. Did I hear that?
That's the project that's been approved by council this year, $1.6 million.
So I'm just kind of curious at what point, just since Measure J subcommittee made presentations to Measure J and to City Council about the use of money for parks, and this was pre the decision that it was going to be used for restrooms. So at some point, somebody made a decision that Measure J money would be used for restrooms, and I don't know if the Measure J subcommittee actually brought that recommendation forward to the commission, and the commission then brought that forward. And if it did, I might not have attended that meeting. So I'm just kind of curious on how that manifested.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that what, I mean, it's not too late, you can undo it. It hasn't been built yet.
It's just it's my question as a commissioner, and that was the impetus for a meeting that actually I wanted to have with yourself and Jeff Court to really understand Measure J and how the restrooms landed inside of Measure J. When the Measure J subcommittee, when we were first given the directive to come together as a group and make recommendations, that.
The initial recommendations were around safety
Right.
and features and design.
And then at some point, restrooms ended up on the Measure J line item. So I'm just kind of curious how that all happened. I don't know if any of my colleagues are, but I am.
I'm not sure how it happened, but I think we should thank it for happening.
Well, you're saying it wasn't a recommendation to the Measure J committee? So Parks and Rec, I presume, again, you speak through you speak through your votes. Did you vote on what the priorities or what you wanted Measure J to do, I presume, and that's what was forwarded to them?
Well, 2 years ago, we sat down and did an open presentation. Ellen led a team that showed what we wanted, and it was around safety, and it was all the things that were hypothetically what you would want in a park, and they took it away. And at that point in time, we lost the budget to the downtown park. So all bets were off then. We weren't doing anything. Then we moved forward, and we did a project which was to report to you all of the bathroom condition, because they came out absolutely horrible. And we added to that the 3 places that there are no exterior bathrooms that there need to be: James O. Jesse, the dog park here, and Francis Stevens. And the answer to that seemed to be Measure J's money.
Got it. Now I understand.
So that's how we got there.
Yeah.
I don't know that we necessarily voted that it would be the right thing to do, but at this point in time, I think I agree with Commissioner Lamort. We have bathrooms that are embarrassing to all of us. We can't. People are not using them. There are some that they can't use because there are none. And if you're having a picnic at the Desert Highlands James O. Jesse Center, you either go in the bushes or you go home, and that's not the way we want to be operating. So we do feel strongly, or I feel very strongly, that we need to move in this direction. I'm just hoping that we'll actually be able to add to Measure J's capability or the council's capability, so that we can start to get things like shade into some of the pickleball courts, shade into the dog parks. We've got the sort of temporary dog park that's taken on a new life, which we love, but a little shade would be helpful there. Maybe some ground cover. I don't mean grass, but something that would be different than dirt, which is the sandy dirt that's there. So I think that's kind of
Right.
where we're moving.
So it's like these parallel tracks. We were given a directive to look at the bathrooms and come with a recommendation. Prior to that, we were allocated funds through Measure J for park use, with a caveat that the downtown park would get that money if they needed it. And they took the money for downtown parks. So it totally wiped the slate of any Measure J funds that we could, as a group, really come together to discuss. So it was my interpretation that bathroom money was not coming from Measure J, that it was coming from capital improvements inside the city's budget, and that we would still have a shot at Measure J money for other upgrades.
And I think the misunderstanding is that Measure J is the city's capital fund. There basically are none other than that.
So, yeah.
And so we were allocated $2 million.
Right, so you're speaking to the Community Projects Fund out of Measure J. This 1.6 didn't come out of that. So that 1.6 million for ADA upgrades at Demuth Park and restroom upgrades is coming out of the other bigger part of Measure J.
Perfect, Marcus, you hit the nail on the head.
So there's $1 million in the current fiscal year budget for community projects, which I think is open game for parks projects, going along the theme that you had presented to the Measure J Commission 2 years ago, because the first 2 years
That's right.
was for Traffic Hotspots 2.0, which went towards the CVAG funded projects downtown, which are, Indian Two-Way and the other projects. So this fiscal year, there's $1 million, and we need to have that conversation with Measure J Commission on what types of park projects, like covered, shade for the playgrounds or the dog parks or whatever it is the commission here wants to recommend to Measure J.
And so one of the things that we did go forward with were pickleball courts, like a pickleball center in Sunrise Park. And then that became, and the city council said, absolutely, that's exciting, go ahead, a directive, move forward. Engineers sketched it out, we did walks, and then the library froze that project because they don't know what they're going to do. And it was really the anticipation that Measure J would cover those, like kind of that use, instead of using it for a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, like really having this big, huge Measure J impact, whether it was pickleball or whether it's a brand new dog park or whatever that might be. So I'm glad to hear that community projects, and I guess what I want just for clarification is that we actually can come together as a team and make recommendations back to the city for the use of that $1 million.
Chair, Les?
Commissioner.
A while back, the mayor came to my neighborhood organization. I live in the northern part of town. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
So a while back, the mayor came to my neighbor organization out of the northern part of town, District 1, and he talked about like these big percentages of money going to parks, right? But when you look at this, fully half of this money is going to the downtown park. And so there's an impression, the people I talked to, that the downtown park is draining all this Measure J money away from our neighborhood parks. And of course, I guess you get this all the time. I voted for Measure J for this reason, but parks is one reason. Many people voted for it, not unless you create a downtown park. And so I think there's been frustration the years I've been on the commission that parks haven't gotten their fair share. And when the city does talk about percentages, it's half of it's going to the downtown park. And so it's not really an accurate conversation about how much we're really funding our neighborhood parks if we're taking so much of Measure J into the downtown park.
So with this being said, we will look at our subcommittees to put together, and we're going to go after we've got the 1.6, correct? Now it is ADA and bathrooms.
Yeah, so most of that money is going to end up going towards completing the ADA upgrades at Demuth Park, which included the snack shack, the restrooms, and access to and from those facilities. We completed phase 1, which was all the walkways from the parking lots to the ball fields. But there's a lot of additional ADA upgrades that need to be completed, which involve the restrooms. And so that's why it was a priority for Measure J and Council, was to address these ADA deficiencies that we have. And I know later today you're going to hear from Stacy. So we have a CDBG funded project to upgrade the Sunrise Park restroom, which is the same type of restroom building we have at, I think, Victoria and others that have been replicated. And that's what we want to talk about is, to be honest with you, it's almost less expensive to demolish. It's a simple CMU block building and build new, or bring in a modular, or go with a new model like what we're going to build at the downtown park, where you don't have men's and women's, you have single stall restroom stalls like you would see at the beach with an exterior lavatory sink. That's the conversation we want to have, and we won't solve it today, but through a subcommittee, we want to come up with a model that works with the CDBG funded project, and then know that that's the model that will work. The type of vandal resistant, fixtures and furnishings that we can select. so that we can then move forward with other architects to do that at all of the park restrooms. So we have one standard, that the commission has agreed. Because unfortunately, no matter what we do, we had just done the Ruth Hardy Park restroom upgrade, and not a week later, the sink got smashed with somebody with a sledgehammer. So, what are you going to do? So we want to do it right the first time, and so that's going to be an ongoing conversation. So the point is, it might delay us a little bit in getting requests for proposals to our on-call architects on then moving forward with the other park restroom upgrades. So all of that work is moving forward.
2 years ago, when we presented to Measure J for the $1 million they had asked us to present, and 1PS was presenting, they got the hot spots. We were told we would get this money with the caveat on a year-by-year basis. It was $500,000 a year for the next 2 years. Did that all go away? I mean, there was.
No, so there's $1 million in this current fiscal year budget for community projects. So I would recommend someone from the commission attend the Measure J Commission meeting and then start talking about how that $1 million will be allocated to a specific project. I think my understanding from the Measure J Commission is they understand that's for parks projects. It's just, what is that project?
And what kind of timeline then on the bathrooms are we looking at?
I hope to have construction plans completed by summer so we can go out to construction next year.
Great, thank you.
But could we also get an idea for the 1.6, what we're really talking about as far as replacement, so that we can target whether part of that 1 million we go after is, adding the 3 additional bathrooms that we're looking for that don't exist today? And then my other question would be, when it comes to, do we have architecturally significant buildings other than Ruth Hardy Park? Because I believe that bathroom is architecturally significant.
I'm not aware of any. I know that Council Member Roberts had talked about the Ruth Hardy Park restroom building. I don't know that it's officially designated anything, but it doesn't matter. We've already heard that message, and so that would not be one we would suggest would be demolished. I think we need to restore and repair the trellis and maintain the building. But the other buildings I'm not aware are significant. They're just standard little rectangular block buildings.
When we met previously, David thought that there should be enough in the 1.6. Maybe we would have some money to build these new ones. As you get the architects bidding and everything, will you keep us informed as to how much we're spending?
Yes.
So the 1.6, that is the ADA and the restroom combination?
Correct.
So that's just for which restrooms specifically?
Well, it was really focused on Demuth Park because it's our largest park and it had the most in terms of ADA upgrades. So those ADA upgrades involve the restrooms, but also, like I mentioned, the snack shack and other facilities, and then access in the park. We got the first part of it completed.
Demuth and Demuth, Ruth Hardy, and.
Well, it really focused on Demuth. So to the extent we figure out what the cost of finishing the ADA upgrades at Demuth is, there could be some of that money that's left over for doing other restroom upgrades at other parks. I would not expect there's going to be a lot of money left over, if any, for entirely new restrooms.
Okay, so just so I can understand, Sunrise is a block grant,
Yes.
that restroom. Demuth is, we're working here, so those are the only two.
Right.
All right, so I presume then what you're hoping to achieve is new restrooms at Desert Highland, and then where were the other?
Francis Stevens.
And Francis Stevens.
The dog park.
And the dog park.
And those can all be exactly what you talked about earlier, single cell outside, hand washing facilities.
What about Victoria Park? What's the status?
There is one there.
Victoria Park needs to be
Very old, and where's those pictures?
Remodeled.
Is it possible to maybe put temporary, because you had mentioned a portable or trailer style, is it possible to maybe put temporary at like Highland Park to track the use and the value added to that particular park so that it helps build a case for the investment going forward to get restrooms there?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's possible to get temporary restrooms there. There's a cost to it and an ongoing cost, but yeah, I mean.
The reason I suggest that is if you anticipate a very low margin left over, that margin might be able to put those portables as we revisit where money will come from for something more permanent.
Okay.
I think what we'll need to do is, as we break down into the committees, forget the 1.6, because that's taken care of in Demuth. The block grant will take care of Sunrise. We need to look at what we feel we need in the remaining places and what you think it would cost to come in with the solutions that we need. I don't think we need to add extra bathrooms in Ruth Hardy. I don't think we need extra bathrooms at Victoria, but that's always been on the top of the list of adding a bathroom, as is the dog park. And I think Francis Stevens, unless contractually, if Francis Stevens could be changed so that if it is not rented by the theater and those doors could be left open.
Well, that obviously raises a whole lot of other issues. I mean, there are restrooms there that are accessible from the outside that the theater uses, that there's no reason why we couldn't use as the public. We would just make that a condition of their lease. Now, obviously, the other issues, that security and all those things that would be a part of it, that's the bigger issues. When are they going to be open, and what kind of security and what kind of maintenance?
But and the only thing that would do is eliminate the need for exterior bathrooms. But
yes,
if we put exterior bathrooms closer to the side of the building, and again, that being 3 individual stalls with laboratory facilities outside, I don't know what the cost of that is, but if it comes in at $100,000, that seems like the logical thing to do. I do worry about that interior at Francis Stevens, because it's totally out of view. You could have somebody living in there, and you'd never know about it until the theater opened up on Friday night for their opening night of show or something.
Well, just so we're clear, I mean, adding new restrooms, like, so for example, at Francis Stevens would be a hundreds of thousands of dollar venture. So that's a whole, adding new restrooms is a whole different thing than renovating the ones we have. So I think, we need a real strategic plan of what we want in long term, and I'm just throwing this out. Do we need, do bathroom consultants exist? There must, I mean, a real assessment of our parks and what's required. I mean, we're just we have this whole big universe of things we think we'd like to have, but what makes sense, because these would be big ticket items.
Well, number one would be James O'Jesse needs something in the evenings and afternoons and weekends when the place isn't open and they have picnics or they have functions on the ballparks there. They have no place to go. That's our number one priority, I would think. And Francis Stevens could possibly be handled with the use of sharing those with the theater for the time being. But our most important one has been James O'Jesse.
I think also the Victoria is very important in that when I noticed that the beams that are holding it up are rusted and falling apart. So I think the building really needs some heavy renovation. When we looked at it, we thought it should be torn down. And then we heard, I think it was Commissioner Armstrong that said there's only two, how do I gently, it's only a two-holer. And a lot of the landscape people are using it. And so it gets much more use than just by the Victoria Park attendants. It's a lot of the workers in the neighborhood. That's the only public bathroom that they have. So I think Victoria should also be a priority.
Well, not to pitch dog park too much, but there is no facility there when the city hall closes. So it's a little bit like James O'Jesse in that there's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when this building is closed, and that park is highly occupied.
But if you think about it, so for example, just to put up restrooms at the dog park, I mean, it's probably $750,000. I mean, you'd have to build a facility, the plumbing, the $500,000, $750,000.
Well, and he was just saying that it would be cheaper to tear down whatever was in Sunrise and put up something than to revamp the one that's currently there. We spent a lot of time, Commissioner Lamort, myself, and Miguel, Mr. Navarro, that's no longer on the commission. We spent a lot of time. We put together a whole packet. We had pictures from, we went from composites, all different kinds of materials. We spent a lot of time on our subcommittee, and we handed that over to our committee, which then passed it along to you all. We voted on it, and so I'm frustrated sitting here listening to this, and as though it's something we spent a lot of time on it, and Miguel put in a ton of work, and it was photos from, like, she came with dog park pictures from different dog parks. We investigated across states, different areas, what would be cheapest, what would be best, cleanest, etc. As you can see, I have on my phone, we went to in public parks, we took pictures of all kinds of public restrooms that we currently have. So I understand it's expensive. I'm just kind of taken aback that it's like a surprise that this is what's needed, and just wanted to voice that, sitting here listening to all of this.
And that work's valuable, and actually we're using it. And so we're vetting all of that with the architect that we've engaged to redo the Sunrise Park restroom.
But that's not the one that necessarily, we're all talking about how there's parks. I don't need it on.
But we do it though for the recording.
Oh. That's, we have parks that have nothing, no facility. I know Sunrise is nasty, Victoria Park is nasty, and I've been in it. My kids and I spent years and years in that restroom, but if we don't have anything in James O. Jesse, and they don't have even an indoor facility that they can go into to use, whereas here at this place, at least this is open, sometimes people can come in, I don't know, prioritizing wise, we need restrooms in places where there are none, period.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we re-engage the committee? Obviously, Miguel is gone, so we'll appoint somebody that can step into that place and just refocus on what we've done and prioritize what we'd like to see done, and we can bring it back to the commission and vote on it. What we can also do is work with Marcus to see, what the cost of what we're asking for, so that we can go to Measure J and effectively get at least a nod on some of the money and an understanding if something's not going to get done for 3 years, which we'd like it to be. And I'd also like to spend time talking to the members of the Desert Highland community and the members of the dog park. I think sitting out and talking with the people that are bringing their dogs and what would work. Ellen comes up with something that's I'm not in particular favor of, is the porta potties. But frankly, the porta potties may be the interim solution to nothing.
It's degrading, but it is something rather than nothing till it gets put up. But I'm thinking we need to have, just as we do with all of our projects, we need to know it's not going to start in 3 years. Like, this is our start date. This is our anticipated end date. In the meantime, we'll put these in for you, these porta potties. That would be great.
Ones, not the single stall
yeah.
that you, right.
Anyway, with a sink, little bit. Oops, sorry.
Absolutely.
The trailers we have at James O. Jesse, none of them have bathroom facilities in them. They're just locked up and not being used, right?
The county trailers?
Didn't we have some trailers up there for?
Did they come and take them away?
Did they leave? Never mind.
Yeah, those are not, those were actually prepared for, I think.
Child care.
Child
Yeah.
care, yeah, and not, yeah. They're not, but they're all child size, as I understand it. And if they're still there, I don't even know if they are still.
I don't know if the trailers are still there, but they would be for the preschool room.
Okay.
That's you. That's your phone on it, she said.
Les,
Commissioner Cohen.
quick question. So just listening to all of this, I just want to make sure I'm understanding as a commissioner. There may be a little bit of money left over, although that is doubtful, but on the $1.6 million that's earmarked. And you're saying there's a potential $1 million of Measure J money that is available, and it's possible that if we prioritize it and put in a recommendation, we could figure out how best to spend it. But it sounds like from the conversation here, that $1 million is not going to go very far for the needs that we have for either the most pressing need, if I call that, not just upgrades and repairs, but where there are no facilities, let alone some of the community's discussion on things like dog parks, et cetera. What is the process, and you're the right gentleman to ask, what is the process for then putting in a request and letting you know what some of our priority needs are, and asking council for a recommendation and trying to get on the budget for additional monies beyond the $1 million?
So I have a suggestion and a recommendation, because right now, it just sort of feels, and this is not your fault, it's almost like we have put you in a position of almost like a dog chasing its tail. You can never get there, right? Because you have all these issues that are real, and the resources obviously just aren't there. So this, you really raise the question, the process, because if you step back and go with this conceptually, what you've got is, first of all, so our current restrooms. There's a long list of things we've got to do there. Then, aside from, secondly, new restrooms. That's a whole nother big expense item. And then competing with the dog park, and then pickleballs. I mean, basically, you need $20 million to do what you need to do. Now, within there is what's our priority and what do we want to strive to do? So this would be my best recommendation, because these are major policy decisions. Council wants to make these, wants to be involved in this. This is what I would recommend. The work you've done is not lost. I assure you of that. But what I would recommend at this point now to get to the next phase is, to the extent that we can articulate the different components, categories, and what at least the commission's recommendations are generally. And then, again, you've got to put the burden on staff to then get into more of the detail of what this is and isn't and can and can't be, because you obviously, you guys aren't paid to do that. But just generally, the categories, the areas, and what you're recommending, then this is what I would do. This takes a little extraordinary measures, I believe. What I would like to do, and what I would commit to you, is put an actual discussion item on the city council agenda, and have this laid out in a staff report that sort of articulates the issue, articulates the wish lists and possible solutions in each of these categories. And then at that point, then council needs, obviously, I think this is a discussion they'd want to have, and then they can give us some direction, because then we're going into budget. What do we want to do? And quite frankly, the restroom are of such, I think they need to take extraordinary measures beyond the budget cycle to find the extra money, at least to do the renovations. So that's what I would recommend is the next step. So what is the role? Is putting together this list of things, having the commission, in essence, vote on sort of like a report and the priorities, and then I schedule a council meeting. So let's just say we could do this in the next 2 to 3 months, all right? And we actually have a dedicated discussion meeting at city council, and maybe even it's a special council meeting, and that's all we talk about. But I would commit to you that I would work to get that on the agenda. Thank you. Because it is that important.
Mr. Reddy, I think that's great, and I think, I'd like Commissioner Goodman's comment about this. I mean, a couple of years ago, when we went to talk about Measure J, one of the issues came up was like drinking fountains, right? Our drinking fountains in parks are terrible, and we talked about maybe this is a pragmatic thing we can address, and I think Measure J came back and said it's not grand enough, right? Something to that order. Now, fast forward a couple of years, drinking fountains in our city are in the news and on Facebook because luckily a councilman took this on and got these done. But some of these things that come up, we've discussed, but then we don't seem to get any traction beyond this room. So the whole drinking fountain controversy, you want to call that, we wanted to address that 2 years ago, but we couldn't get anywhere with it.
Commissioner Goodman?
Just for clarification, I heard that there's Measure J, capital improvements, I got that, and then there's community projects. And I know that in the time I've been living here since Measure J was authorized, there's an allocation for community projects, which really benefits the whole community for the community experience. And I just want to make sure that that $1 million in the community projects as we create our priority list is really designated for like the joyful use and the expansion of park experience around community projects, and not the necessity for capital improvements, leasehold improvements, and sometimes items that have fallen into disrepair as a result of either lack of money or attention, like I would hate for community money that the community is really looking forward to using to be used for something that by default was somewhat neglected. So, like, we already lost community project monies to downtown parks, and I don't want to lose community projects that the community is really relying on for some of their needs, and that it go to capital improvements and leasehold improvements.
Yeah,
But
good
do you think
idea.
people would wanna
It's
get
just that
rid
we're
of-
not the decision makers on that, but I hear what you're saying.
The $1 million, David, as much as I'd like to do what you were thinking of, that was already earmarked for our improvements in the Sunrise Park, pickleball courts, dog parks, and things like that. Am I correct that that is already earmarked for that from what was voted 2 years ago, or not?
So one of the things I made sure council did at the joint Measure J council meeting in May was reconfirm that $1 million would be budgeted every year for community projects, which is at the discretion of the Measure J Commission. And they did that. And so at this point, there's $1 million in this current fiscal year budget for community projects. However, the Measure J Commission wants to spend it. I haven't been given a list of projects, but as I mentioned earlier, my impression is they understood the first part of that. I think they want to say, I want to say they approved 4 years of Measure J community projects, with the first two being Hotspots 2.0, and then the next two being park projects. So the reality is all of that community project funding actually did go to Hotspots projects. In fact, we're awarding next week the Missing Link Sidewalks project, which kind of got held up a little bit. And so that is being funded with what remains from the community project funding from Measure J. As I think if you remember, the first series of projects was all dealing with missing link sidewalks and a bunch of traffic things that the residents had requested through their neighborhoods. So it will be important for this commission to prioritize what types of park projects you want spent out of this fiscal year's $1 million. And then I don't know if there's another $1 million coming in 2021 for parks, but the good news is that the council recommitted to the Measure J Commission having this $1 million discretionary fund to do with the projects that they want to see completed.
I think we've got our direction and the way someone who will be leading this group after today's election can take us. If is there anything else that you want to share with us, Dr. Reddy or Marcus?
I think, it's important not to let this slip away, because obviously too much time has gone by, and it's just a matter of competing projects. Obviously, the parks, the downtown park, the library, all the other things. But that's why I think it's important to have a focused discussion with council, and to the extent we can be as specific as we can with a recommendation, and get them as a policy decision to move forward, because in the end, they have the control over the Measure J dollars. It will be them, and it's the incumbent upon them to make these decisions, and they will. We just have to get your needs in front of them. Okay.
And a good way to do that may be a joint meeting. So,
well, I'm not promising a joint meeting, but at least a agenda item that is on this. Now, obviously, you would have a role to play in that. But I think the key thing is to get it in front of them sooner than later.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm sorry, one more question, and I think we're all probably tired of the topic. Because of the library's process, is Sunrise Park off the table for anything until the library decides what they want to do?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if and again, it's just thinking through that, if they stay at Sunrise, there's a discussion, obviously, that it would be some sort of expansion potentially. They're clearly going to have more parking, so the actual space of the park might reduce, but that's not going to affect. Yeah.
And I guess tying into that, are there any grant opportunities for dog parks or things of that nature in,
Well, if you recall, we applied for the Prop 68 grant, where in that park design, we did have a dog park designed into our original design that we submitted to the state. So we have a section for small dogs and a section for large dogs.
In the new park
At the
on
north end of
Racket
town.
Club? In that,
Yes.
right, okay.
So we'll have to wait for any other future grant opportunities, but the one we did submit to the state recently does include a dog park.
what's the deadline on that grant?
It was submitted on August 5th, so now we're just in the review process, and cross your fingers that we get awarded.
Well, thank you both very much for joining us. Sorry it ran longer than it intended to. And I know that City Councilman Coors extended his apologies to me this earlier this afternoon, that there was a meeting that on an important topic that he was unable to attend. But he said, that doesn't mean that I don't care. I've just had to do something else. So he'll be with us, I think, next month. So thank you both. Great. The next item on the list is discussion on the water plant update. So this
Can we
I'm
back
sorry.
up
Oh, you know
to
what? I
staff
apologize. But you
updates?
can come and sit because we did skip staff updates.
So if I can have Stacy come up.
It's okay. He's fine. He's a city employee. Oh, we're going to. It's fine. It's laying down here.
Actually wanted to introduce Ernesto Salinas. This is
Mike.
his first day being on this.
So flip your mic on, both of you. Yeah. No. You're looking red. There you go. You're on.
There you go. So thank you. I'm coming from San Bernardino, where I was the operations manager for the operations and maintenance division. But I am a resident of Palm Springs, and I'm really familiar with the needs of this community.
Great. So having stolen two people from San Bernardino within the last year.
The assistant
who's
director of
running?
maintenance and facilities.
Great.
And he's apparently got a laundry list from his friends about all the issues in the parks already.
Well, we know that the staff is working diligently on things. I know there's a missing fountain right now in the wellness park that they've been taking apart and replacing. I talk to them regularly. So.
Right. And we have, I think, found a few of the obsolete parts to get that one rebuilt. And we're currently working towards seeing what we can replicate for the human to dog fountains that are maybe a little more durable and a lot less expensive than the ones that we had been replacing. So we're incrementally, what we're trying to do is replace one per park all the way across the board. So that's the goal coming up. But again, as this is a maintenance issue, what we're actually doing is looking at which ones are the most vandalized and really the ones in the dire need. So that's what's driving that to move forward.
Okay. And it is my understanding that fountain was actually found in our facilities and had been there for a couple of years. It might have been the fountain that we asked for and ordered 3 years ago, but we were told that it couldn't be ordered because it was too expensive.
The fountain, I think this is the one that was mentioned on Facebook, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Ruth Hardy, yeah, that, it wasn't purchased. That was one of the fountains that was removed during the renovation 3 years ago. There were two of them that had been removed and that were in the yard, in the boneyard, found. We scavenged the parts from one to rebuild the other to replace the fountain in Ruth Hardy.
Where had it been installed in the parks? Because I've lived here 8 years, I've never seen
that was
it.
prior to me.
Prior to being here, okay. It may have been
But it
something.
had been, I've seen it back there for a long time, the two of them, but only one of them was, well, at the time, neither of them were functional, so we had to take the parts from one to make the other one functional.
Okay. Well, it seems to serve the needs of animals and humans, although it does look like it might be taking a little bit of toll of the container itself. Looks like it could be beaten up pretty easily.
Yeah.
But I also understand that it's somewhat refrigerated. Is that accurate? No? No?
No.
Okay. No. Because that's the other concern I have is, bringing more fountains in that are turning out 130-degree water is not a great concept for humans or dogs. I certainly don't want.
They need a minute, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Was there anything else that you're going to talk to us about?
In particular, I had asked Cynthia, I need to work with whoever your subcommittee is for the restrooms. That was, obviously Marcus just stole my thunder on that, but we're ready to get rolling. And again, this is in particular for the Sunrise Park. Right now, that's a CBDG grant for that particular park. So that's the one we're focused on right now. It's actually a separate line item in our project from the rest of the park renovations. And I wanted to clarify the idea that, and I was one of the people that suggested we just take it down to the slab. The reason that's more cost effective is all the plumbing and sewage, it's all there already. All them we need to do is just raise back up and add the different features. We were definitely interested in adding to JOJ, to Sunrise, Barista. I've had the same list for a few years as well, and we are looking into modular options. We're looking into temporary. The temporary, honestly, maintenance-wise, those are really challenging, even down at Village Fest. I think right now, when we can't use our own Village Fest trailer down there, it's about $1,000 a week, right? Yeah, just so we have an idea. That's just for a couple of them. Then you have the fact of cleaning them, stocking them, and who's going to go out at night and lock them? That's one or the other. And then who's coming around in the morning? So those are some of the factors we take into consideration, even when we use portable restrooms anywhere citywide.
Absolutely.
We have to be responsible for them. But we are, as far as on the design phase and on the engineering phase, we're absolutely open to, we were looking at all options. So even if the designs and the ideas of what we're using for this project don't get used in this project, we will have them ready for the next.
Okay.
So there should not be any lapse or gaps. And I apologize, I didn't know about the subcommittee project that you had 2 years ago, but I will work with Cynthia. We will find that information, and we will make sure that it's right in front of the engineering group as we move forward with whatever subcommittee you guys recommend.
Great. And then we'll probably ask the same two people to be on the subcommittee, but add to that subcommittee, and we'll know at the end of the meeting today who that will be, and we'll get them in contact with you.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Is the
Commissioner
block
Bowley?
grant a done deal? We have that, or we're waiting on that?
That's done.
That's
We're
done.
ready. We're ready to, I need to meet with subcommittee. Engineering's already been assigned.
Oh, okay.
We just need some, so what we would like to do is use this almost like a template. So this is our starting point for, even though it's two technically separate projects, we want to say this is our template, and now moving forward with the rest of the renovations, just the renovations, not the new builds especially, but the renovations of just the block, not including Ruth Hardy, because that's specialized, but the other block, block malls, this is our template. This is what we like as a design. Do we like the idea of, when I've last few months as I've been out to beaches and different restaurants or areas, taking a lot of pictures of the open canvas at the top, the split open areas just right down the middle where there's block walls that come up to your shoulders, so parents can stand on either end, kids can be in there, everybody's in there. It's more of an open atmosphere. It could look a little utilitarian, but there's also a lot of design elements that you could bring in, a lot more natural light, ventilation. So as we're going forward, we kind of want to just identify where do we want to go? How do we, knowing that this may be our basic footprint, where do we want to go with this?
Absolutely. One quick question. In Sunrise Park, is this bathroom part and parcel of the baseball field, or is it a totally separate building?
It's the one next to Cerritos Field. It's in between the stadium and Cerritos Field, just on the edge
Okay.
of the parking lot.
All right.
That's the one we're talking about.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Stacy?
I did want to mention, kind of to follow up with what Dr. Reddy said, we have increased park maintenance at the dog park. It used to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now it is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from noon to 3 to increase that maintenance. We're also working with the landscape company to get a revised bid to add a few more services in every day as well as during those maintenance days, so we can identify some of the areas. I will work on getting some sod quotes. I think we actually did that once before. The one caveat I want to put in with that was when we replaced the sod a couple of years ago during the 3-year renovation, that downtime was significant as well. So if the overseeding downtime is frightening 4 times a year to sod, I want to make sure that we're all really clear on what we're looking at, aside from the cost.
Yes, Commissioner.
Stacy, are they power washing when they come in those 3 days a week? They're actually doing, are they using any chemical or any soap
No,
on that?
no,
Just
no soap.
Just water?
Well, it's heated water. We have the heated water, and it is power washing. It's power washing to all hard surfaces, all rocks, benches, etc.
Right, because I think one of the biggest complaints is the urine and the smell, which just power washing doesn't take care of that.
Right. The only product truly used there are organic herbicides and organic pest control. It's just such a controversial issue for us, at this time. It's the same thing that we do downtown for that. We are right now in certain areas where we're having biohazard problems. We are trying to look at we're evaluating some potential organic cleaning products, but we're in the infancy and we have not started on the dog park. Sadly, we're starting downtown first, and then when humans pass it, then we'll move to the dogs.
Is there not something going on in some other city that would be not having to recreate the wheel by leaning on a fellow, something in Los Angeles or San Francisco or Chicago where they're having the same kind of issues with dog parks? And
We're actually in pretty consistent contact with Rancho Mirage, Palm Desert. They're doing the same things we're doing. They power wash. Some power wash less than we do, some power wash more. Depends on, again, the one thing most of them have that we don't is a lot more space.
Yeah. Okay.
And honestly, not to brag about us, but it seems to me they have a lot less dogs. We have a lot of. The bang for the buck. Our park gets a lot more traffic.
Well, and it's smaller.
Much smaller.
Our small dog park is much smaller than in any of the other small dog parks. So
Correct.
That's something that we're gonna. I think the subcommittee is going to need to look at how we can look to gain more space either here or just go someplace else within the city to do this. Although I do want to. This is a part of the city that's really grown into this park and outgrown it. So I don't know that we get those people wanting to drive a mile or two to go to the dog park. It really seems like this is a place that we need to find a way to solve it. So we'll look at the subcommittee definitely to get creative with no money. Yes, sure.
Just while you're here and you're talking about dog park, can you just give us a quick little status report? The one at Demuth was really temporary. It just was a kind of extension. And so I was just curious.
So actually, and I left it outside, but I brought Cynthia a copy. I did, per the subcommittee's request, check into, we got quotes for sand, mulch, and DG. To be honest, the sand and mulch, neither of our landscape contractors, they all agreed you could, but they will really, really strongly suggested against it, as well as other dog parks. Sand will blow away. Sand will become a hazard to the neighboring areas, and you're going to have a constant refill problem, as well as the heat. There's a lot of heat with sand if you've been on a beach on a hot day. Secondarily, the mulch actually is not recommended for dog parks because of the potential bacteria. So DG was the winner, hands down. The current estimate is just under $60,000 because they have to basically scrape down, layer up, and we would have to put base, we would have to tamp it down, put weed retardant, and then the DG layer across. So I do have that formal quote ready for your subcommittee if that's the direction you choose to go. And this is just for that large temporary dog park area in Demuth Park. And I'm in the process of getting additional quotes as well for potential, the DG at the, for lack of better words, the old playground at Demuth. It's a sandy area right now, but it used to be the playground area and it's just sand. I had them evaluate that as well to add DG and a fenced-in area for that, maybe for a possible small dog park, is about $45,000. And I will get you the hard figures for all that. I have it.
How does the space of that compare to the small dog park here? Is it comparable or?
It's It's bigger. I would have to measure out exactly, but oh yeah, definitely
Bigger than
much
the small
bigger.
dog park?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But again, there's limited
Cohen.
shade. I think there's one or two trees and they're not, not really that close. Whereas with the large dog park, one of the things we talked about was either shade structures. We're still getting some quotes for that, but we do feel like we have the opportunity to possibly plant some trees, at least on the south and maybe on the west side there.
Good. Commissioner Cohen?
Just using the opportunity since you're here, maybe you could help tamp down the rumor mill at Demuth Park. I'm changing topics for a moment. Demuth Park, the pickleball courts, the lighting was cleaned and it was fantastic, but there are actually at least a few lights that are actually burnt out completely. And a lot of people were playing just early mornings and then evenings when the sun went down. So there were only a couple of courts that were actually even lit well enough to play. And of course, as the winter comes in, we'll have more people here, the seasonal residents, but it gets darker early, so lights are important. And then the rumor mill spun up, and I'm sure that it's probably 99% not true, but things like, it's such old lighting that they don't make those light bulbs anymore, and that's why they're burned out and they won't ever get replaced, or things like that. Just curious if you could just tell us anything that you know about that.
That's absolutely true. They are phasing out metal halide lights. We have plenty, and we will get those taken care of. But yes, long-term, if you also look on the capital improvement projects that we are asking for, we're asking for $1 million to replace all metal halide lights, which are tennis courts, pickleball courts, ball fields, stadium, et cetera. We have to convert those over to LED. But
Put that on the
right now,
list.
we've been stockpiling.
$1 million.
Yes, we have been stockpiling as reasonable. Those have to be climate controlled, the ballast and the lights. So we do have plenty right now, and I think we're good for the foreseeable future. And I wasn't aware of that, but we will definitely put that on the list and get it taken care of.
Great, well, thank you for getting the information out. Appreciate it.
Yes, Commissioner Belli.
The lady that was here that brought up about the gate, would you have someone check and see what the problem is with the gate?
Actually, I met with them. Kenny and we've actually been meeting with her frequently. The day we were there, there was a screw that was loose, and we screwed it back in. The other issue, it was hindering, yes. But as what she was talking about is on the dog park, we have a large dog park, we have a small dog park. Based on that, the size of the fencing and the width and the area of that are different. On the large side, especially on this far east side, there are some larger gaps. Some of the very small dogs, when they're allowed over the large side, can get through there. So a couple of the folks from the small dog parks have bought special collars when they let their dogs over there to stop that. We have tried to modify it a little bit, but twofold. One, that is art, and I'm not comfortable, and neither are my staff, in making any major alterations to that. And two, that it's pretty small, really. So one of the options we're looking at is netting or some type of mesh. I don't know what that's going to look like aesthetically, but if that's the direction folks want us to look at, we will definitely look at that. I don't know how far we can wrap that, but it's something we'll look at.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Stacy.
And welcome.
Yes. Yeah, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Don't let us frighten you away. Cynthia, you had some updates too, didn't you?
So on October 1st, we will be having National Night Out over at the stadium from 5 to 8 p.m. We will have an information booth and also some activities that we will be running. I invite you to come out and participate with us. We will be, Halloween falls on Thursday, which means Village Fest. We will be hosting some carnival type of activities, and we also want to invite you guys out to come out and help participate in running some of those booths. We'll also be reaching out to some of our camp volunteers to get them some more volunteer hours for school. But please come out and be a part of that. Pickleball has been added to the Webster's Dictionary. Wanted to make sure I put that out there for everybody. Let's see. We are working on executing an MOU with United Cerebral Palsy Inland Empire for the use of the multipurpose room at the Demuth Community Center for some special needs after-school programming on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 6 p.m. And then the North American Gay Amateur Athletic Alliance, or the NAGA Cup, has been awarded to the City of Palm Springs through the Palm Springs Gay Softball League. So our city will be hosting this event March 27th through the 29th. So put that on your calendars. I will. They beat out Houston and Salt Lake City. So the State of the City address will be Wednesday, September 25th. The reception will be held at El Corozo from 5 to 6 p.m. And then the program will be at La Plaza Theater from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Tickets are available for purchase through the Palm Springs Chamber. And it is special event season coming upon us. So we have lots of parades and lots of events. So we need to figure out how we're going to get you guys involved in either being a part of the parade or helping run some of these parades or events. And we'll start talking about that maybe in some of our committees. I'm not sure if you guys were watching council this past week, but they approved the security contract. So one of the things that I requested for this upcoming for this contract was some additional park security on the weekends. So Saturday and Sunday, you'll start seeing security go from park to park to make sure that we can address vehicles being parked on the grass or just any kind of, violations. So they will be present from 9 to 3, and they will be rotating from Sunrise Park, Demuth Park, Ruth Hardy Park, Victoria, James O'Jessy, and Baristo Park.
Very good.
And, one more thing. This is from Janet. She's going to be sending out basically updating information sheet. So if you guys could respond to her so we can get an updated list of all of our commissioners and their information so we can make sure we have everything ready to go.
Great, thank you. Yes, absolutely.
So, and I was going to mention this, I'm sorry I didn't mention it when Marcus and David were here. The mobile unit that went into Sunrise, and we had a email exchange. I don't know if everybody else has heard about it. You could have read it in the paper or on Facebook. I wasn't, as a commissioner, notified prior to it hitting Facebook and the media, and I don't think anyone in the department was notified. And I'm just kind of curious on how we can support you, or if there's any plan or strategy on how the city can be more proactive in communicating and it not be left to Facebook or the Desert Sun for all of us to be informed. So, and you don't have to have an answer to that, but if you have some thought about it, and I should have mentioned it when they were here, because it's happened before, it happened this time, and we kind of want to be able to redirect that.
Great.
Just very quickly, you mentioned that we're coming up to festival season, we're coming into the season. We've talked about it before, we just need a little lead time, but we talked about getting a banner or something that if we could participate, because in the past we've tried to and nobody knew who we were. So there's some way of identifying us so if we do come to a parade or a festival, there's something. And we, rather than do it with 1 week's notice, maybe we can talk about it now.
The other thing we talked about too is not just looking at commissioners, but also inviting pickleball players and tennis players and kids that go to summer park, so that if we've got people who are using our parks walking in the parades with us, it shows that there's a lot more than just a couple of commissioners that care. So it'd be great.
Let's ask something.
Yes.
So with the Naga Cup, that's a big thing. Do we have any money to work on the fields? Because all the field 5, 6, 7, and 8, they need them boxes, the batters boxes. If we could get somehow a permanent, there's a way to do it. But I think since we're having this kind of play, spruce them up a little bit.
Yeah, so I am working on putting together a scope of service to get the fields laser leveled. I'm hoping that Demuth can be the park that gets all 8 fields done this year, and then we'll start rotating as we go into future years so that we can make sure we keep these fields updated. So.
Can I ask a silly question? Is Victoria Park ever used for baseball? Because there's a baseball screen there, but there is no diamond, there is no...
It's
No.
not a part of something that we would rent out.
Okay. Just strange that it's there. When you walk it, it's just sort of an object in the middle of the field. Okay. Great. No other questions? Then we're going to go ahead and ask our guest from Viola to give us an update. This is regarding the water plant and the issue that we've had with odors and why it's better, or if it's not, why not?
Good evening. My name is Doug Lohr. I'm the plant manager. I work for Veolia. We operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant under contract with the city of Palm Springs. So I was asked to come and give an update on some of the changes that we've made recently. We had an area that we used to manage our sludge or further dry our sludge, and we had piles of dry and piles of wet, and it created some problems with odors and dust. When we let things get too dry, then there was an incredible amount of dust. And so it was causing problems in the park. And so basically what we did was we just abandoned that area entirely, and it was in the corner near one of the ball fields and the kids' playground in that area on our side of the fence. So basically we just abandoned that area entirely, which doesn't allow us to dry the sludge to the level that we used to, which means it costs more to haul. And so really that was really the trade-off here is we have a trailer from our hauler that's on site at all times, and we pretty much load the sludge up as it gets done being dried in the drying beds or from our belt press. And from the lack of complaints, I think we've made a big impact. I haven't heard of any complaints for some time now. So I think it's working. What we're doing is working. And like I said, it just, the city approved a additional budget for us to haul the sludge wet. Basically, we're just hauling extra water. But if that's what it takes to reduce the odors and the dust problems, then the city's committed, and so are we, to get that, to make sure we maintain it. So far, so good. I'm not saying that you'll never smell anything, but we're trying really hard to minimize any type of odor. That's always our number one priority now when we do any kind of maintenance work or anything. How are we going to deal with the odor that it's going to create? So we're really trying to be proactive and not get any complaints. That's our goal.
Great. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Lamar?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Doug. I used to move park every morning, and I've been complaining about it. And I once told Marcus, I will be the squeaky wheel. And they moved the sludge pile to a place that's off. I didn't know that you were putting them directly into the truck, but they have solved the problem. In, 3 months, there's been no odor. So thank you very much.
That's amazing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there's still odor there, when people play pickleball. It is, I'm a party of one, so this is not scientific, but I would tell you that it's 50 to 75% better. It used to be constant and so bad that some people would actually get sick and leave, and that's pretty rare now. But it's still there as an odor, but I can't imagine that we're next to a wastewater treatment plant that's going to be zero. It doesn't chase anybody away. It's not making anybody sick right now. And if it gets to the point where there is an issue, I think we'll just bring it back to you and try to figure out why and if there's anything we can do to mitigate it.
Yeah, and I want to agree with that too, because I live there. I live in DeMuth Park. I'm at that field. I'm at the fields 5-6 days a week. And so now with our senior softball starting up too, and the pickleball right there, the smell's been great. I mean, I don't want to say the smell's been great. It's just been, I'd say, probably 70% better, 75% better. So good job. I just wanted to say that.
Great.
Good job.
Yeah, one of the other things I wanted to mention is that we did put signage facing the park that has City of Palm Springs wastewater treatment plant and our telephone number. So if anybody has a problem,
They can call.
just call us directly, immediately. And that's how we can deal with it. When I hear about it Monday morning and it was Friday night, I don't know where to go or what to do, So if we hear about it immediately, we have people on call 24/7. We'll respond. We'll get it taken care of.
Perfect.
Whatever it is.
Thank you very much for being good neighbors, even working as part of the city. It works when it works together, and this is evidence that it's working. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thank you.
Great. So I apologize. We're running long today, but I think it was a healthy meeting with Dr. Reddy, let's move as quickly as we can through the remaining things that we have. Discussion on creating subcommittees. I'm hearing the call for dog and restroom, and I think we have existing subcommittees, and I'm hoping, yeah, and what was the third one? Measure J. I'm hoping that people will consider continuing with the park, with the committee that you're working on, and hopefully we can add people to it. But if I can just ask, from the dog park perspective, well, Travis, are you still, can you, that'd be great. Travis, Ellen,
And then Miguel was on that. and so
okay.
we need a replacement.
And so we need one. We can operate with two, but I think it's a lot more, it's a lot easier when you've got three people. Is there someone else that would be interested in the dog park? No. All right, let's look at the restroom situation, and that, I know Jody, you are on, and Jody, Charlie, and who else?
Originally, I was before I left for Asia, and they stepped out and they finished up the project.
But you'd move back in?
I don't know. Was that thrown out?
No. Is he welcome?
Then I'm back in it. I'm still.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Measure J, I'd like to continue on that. And there was Ellen. Ellen. Okay, I think we have to count heads.
Nine of us on the commission, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's 9.
It's 5 people.
Right, but we need,
2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, was Travis your on the measure
No.
J?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5, David.
5 people raise your hands. Show her.
But you weren't on the measure J.
Yeah, it was,
You were on downtown parks.
No, he was on Measure J too.
I was the appointed to the downtown park as you were, but I was on Measure J.
Well, I know because we met with Measure J last year.
Well, you know what, I'll pull out so that, because I think I'd feel more comfortable if we stayed at 4 until we get the right, because we've got 2 more commissioners that we should be bringing
They
on.
were, because we met with Measure J when Sid went over.
Yeah. So Ellen, Dalen, David, Johnny. All right. So the only place we're short is the dog park. Do we want to,
Why don't we wait for Mr. Crawford to return? We can assign him. Some people who aren't on the
well, and we have,
Weren't at meeting.
let me think, we have 2 more positions in addition to Dieter, so that have yet to be filled. So, but we can do that, is leave that open and then we can fill later. Perfect.
Can we also add the swim committee? Because I also want to start looking at the reprogramming issue again.
And we're not talking about the restroom facilities, i.e. swim, we're talking about a totally separate committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that an ad hoc committee or standing committee?
Sounds like it'd
Can
be
we do a
ad hoc.
standing committee? Only because our swim center is such a popular resource in our community that I would probably need to be able to reach out
More regularly.
often.
So it could be a standing committee that doesn't have a set schedule for meeting, but be called upon. I would absolutely be on that.
Okay.
And swim,
I will.
Johnny?
You know, it deals with kids and schools, so Jody, I don't know if I want to nominate.
She hates kids. No, I'm just kidding.
Ellen and I were doing it last time.
We did.
Was that you volunteering?
Oh, what happened to Jody?
Well, Jody and Ellen could be up to 4 people on that.
This is swim.
Yep, all right. So Les, Johnny, Jody, and Ellen.
Okay. Wait, who on swim?
Les, Johnny, Jody, and Ellen.
Chair Young?
Yes.
I have a question for
Yes.
our director. For a standing committee, are there Brown Act issues with this, because another commission is operating on the assumption that even if it's not two people, say, if a standing committee is just to be noticed. That's the difference they've been told between ad hoc committees and standing committees, no matter how many people are on it. So I don't know if we're adding all these noticing requirements by doing this, and if so, what they are. Maybe that's something we can find out about.
I believe you still have to stay under the majority.
Right, but I'm saying that I think sustainability operates that their standing committees have to be noticed regardless of how many people are on them.
I think you're absolutely right, Travis.
When you're talking about notice, you're talking about it has to be there has to be a public notice, there has to be public comments. You're absolutely right. If it is
An allowance of
Sorry.
attendance.
So Travis, you're correct. If it is a standing committee that's ongoing, there has to be a 48-hour or 76-hour notice. It has to have public comments, there has to be minutes, it has to be documented, where an ad hoc or a subcommittee, ad hoc does not. And they all have to be under the majority to be within Brown.
Absolutely.
So are you
So-
guys calling all these ad hoc committees?
Well, I want to go through actually, and to his point, make sure that we are calling them ad hoc, or if we're not calling them ad hoc. But I don't want to call them ad hoc to avoid interfacing with the public. And there is times, like I personally think the dog park is a perfect one that it should be standard and including so that their thoughts are coming in rather than coming to the meeting and after the fact when you've moved through something. So,
You're going to run into issues with place and the ability to record, because the city likes to have all of their commissions and subcommittees.
I've not seen them all recorded, but
Well, you can handwrite minutes.
yeah, I think as long as the minutes are done, and that would be amongst us, the members, to provide. I mean, that'd be the issue. I mean,
I would just request that you remember that my staffing levels are limited, so.
yeah. Well, I think in the subcommittees, at least previously, with the subcommittees that I sat on, we were actually providing the minutes as a result of the meeting, so. But if any of these are ad hoc, and again, I wouldn't want to see them be made ad hoc for the sole purpose of not including other people, but for example, Measure J, I can't see why that would need to be a standing. Am I correct
It
there?
reports back, so I don't see why any of them really need to if they report back to the commission.
Well, and I think it's not something that's going to go on forever and ever and ever. I mean, it may
I don't think
pop
Measure
up.
J, but it
Yeah.
sounds like,
Restrooms?
they feel timed. It feels like, a year from now, we might have some results, so I don't know if it would be standing.
Yeah, I was thinking ad hoc, and are you changing your mind to ad hoc versus standing, or?
For swimming? Yes, and we will make sure that we do notify the community to be able to attend if they
Oh,
would
wait,
like.
then that would be standing.
It's standing.
I believe we did ad hoc
different.
the last time. We just notified the community.
We did when we had a community
Mhm.
meeting.
Okay. That's fine. So.
Did you take minutes? No, because it was ad hoc, so you didn't have to do that. We took notes.
An ad hoc committee can certainly notify the community that if they want, that their meeting is just not required.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And so you don't have to make the notice and legally, and you don't have to document minutes. But we did invite everybody, which I would encourage that we continue to do.
I agree.
So Janet, just to make sure, standing is dog park and restroom, Measure J, and swim center are ad hoc,
Restroom and Measure J are ad hoc, you said.
correct? And yeah, because dog park, you want to invite everybody to speak up at that meeting and regularly to make sure that they're included, because
If it's standing, though, she needs staff there to record it.
no, she doesn't, we can record it, we can do, it doesn't have to be recorded, it doesn't have to be taped, it has to be, you have to present minutes, right?
I would have to check with the city clerk.
And I think what David said was, we've not had standing committees, and we've invited the public. to swimming, to pickleball, to tennis. And I think what David is suggesting is we can still have ad hoc or subcommittees and invite the public to participate by putting up notification, but not stretch staff to be there and notify and take minutes. Is that
That's my only concern
It
is,
is, and I actually would say we could actually formalize that as a policy that we could vote on if we wanted to. We could say that it would be the policy of the committee, the ad hoc committee, to make public notice ahead of time. It's not required, but we certainly can adopt that as a policy.
well, if the only difference is recording, I'm flexible, but I just want to make sure that we're not walking away from including people who have opinions that can put it in the solution as opposed to after the fact chasing the problem.
Sure, Young.
Yes.
Throughout this too, this discussion, it used to be on this commission that we had these subcommittees and we had non-commissioners on them. And it was seen as a way to get the public involved and maybe they might be interested in joining the commission, but they had this experience right on it. And I was on the Dogs Heart Subcommittee a long time ago when I was on the commission. And then there was some kind of policy change in the Parks Department. I don't think it was a city change that that we weren't going to have any citizens, residents on these subcommittees anymore. Now, I know sustainability is they're active transportation committee, I don't know if it's sub or ad hoc, has non-commissioners on it. So that could be another route we want to talk about, people who are kind of the subject matter experts, because they're, say, at the dog park all the time, to think about something like that.
I like the idea because then it makes people feel like they're included in the solution. And would you have any issue with including representation from the public within subcommittees?
No, the commission's been very good about wanting to invite the community at large for anytime we decide we want to look at changing, whether it's programming or adding to. So you guys are already doing that. I don't see a problem with you adding a community member to one of these committees.
So I'm wondering if we need to formalize that. If you want to make a motion that we, allow ourselves so that we're putting a stake in the ground on it, I think it'd be a good idea.
All right, so can I make a motion what Les just said? Does that work? Yeah. Work, okay.
So are you guys going to formalize a process on how you're going to select a member of the public? Because we also want to make sure we do it fairly and that it's not looked upon as a bias.
Yeah, maybe we should put it on the next agenda.
If the committee could actually get together and discuss a little bit to talk about it and then make the recommendation on the next meeting, I think that'd be a good idea. But some of these committees are going to need to get together, well, at least Measure J and restrooms. I would not wait to get together and start putting the ideas together because I want to ask for money sooner rather than later. And I also want to ask for I'd like to try to get a joint meeting where we actually sit with City Council and go through the issues going forward because I think it will help us to get where we need to get, which is lots of money. So based on that, we'll hold off on the motion. We'll discuss it and bring it forward. Thanks. Thanks for the idea, Travis. I think that's going to be a good one. Mary, are you still awake? Come on forward.
I'll be on any committee you want.
We
are problem solvers.
Okay, discussion on pickleball instructor contract and approval of pickleball tournaments.
Okay, so I had sent out a draft of the staff report, basically explaining to you why this item has come before you. With pickleball being such a hot topic, I didn't feel comfortable making the decision on my own, as you guys are the community liaisons, and I didn't want to ruffle pickleball feathers, right? So Mary basically approached me when I first got here, being interested in becoming a pickleball instructor for the department and having a contract in place and having her basically be abiding by one of our rules that we had established not too long ago about being a certified and city-approved contract instructor. So before you was basically the proposal. She's interested in doing classes basically 3 times a week. On Mondays, she's interested in doing it at the Demuth Community Center gym from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. That time frame at the gym is open. She would essentially be instructing those at the beginner level. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she's interested at actually being a contract instructor at the courts. Tuesdays, she would be looking at 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Thursdays to 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. She would max out at about 24 per class for the outside courts and at about, I believe it was 12 for the indoors. It would be $60 a month, and there would be a break percentage-wise where she would get 70% for being the contract instructor and 30% would actually come to the city for allowing the resources to be used. You obviously don't have a draft of what the contract looks like, but in there, it basically would talk about this scheduling and all of the legal jargon that all of the rest of our contractors have to go through, and the split. So I'm bringing the item before you so you can discuss the times that she has suggested and also the days and the 2 locations. And then attached to the end of that staff report was basically her breakdown for class instruction for beginning pickleball, and then the 2 outdoor classes at the courts.
Can you repeat the times again?
So
Like Mondays?
Mondays would be 12 to 1:30.
Okay.
And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesday would be 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Thursday would be 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. On the Tuesdays and Thursdays, there would be 2 groups, so she could get 2 classes in during that time frame.
How do these times work with pickleball players? Well, we wouldn't be in their way, would we?
I'll start and then I'll let Mary actually do it accurately. Yeah, come on up here, Mary. But I'll tell you that the courts will get heavily used. Depends on the weather, obviously, and if it's cool, sometimes mornings can be too cool and things, so it'll be used. But if I understand this properly, there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are 12 courts currently now.
Yes.
Right.
And if I'm reading this correctly, at any maximum time, Mary, am I correct? There'll only be 6 being used for instruction?
We were going to limit it to 4.
4.
And it's in non-prime time. That's why we picked those times.
So to
That one day a week, we were trying to hit the working public, and we may or may not stay. We were just trying to figure out one evening and only use 4 courts. That would leave the rest for the public.
So compared to other years when Mary has offered kind of pickup clinics and things, we didn't have they've added 4 courts. So we actually have a lot more capacity, and to have this as a resource to help bring new people who can play, who can't get on the courts or they're intimidated or for whatever reason, I think it's a great use of facilities. If you're only limiting it to 4, that's even better.
We certainly don't have to use the evening. We were just trying to hit up working, because there are people that work. We could always go in the afternoon when it's a non-prime time. We could be flexible on it. So
Could
we're
you-
looking for your direction.
Could you use indoors in the evening if it gets crowded during season?
I don't have the capability for her to do
don't
evening
space.
classes because I have other classes happening at the
I
gym.
mean, I
during
don't
that
think
time.
we know what season is going to draw now that you have extra courts.
Right, but
Right,
indoor
only time will
pickleball
tell.
is very different than outdoor pickleball for Mary's instruction. And the other thing I would say too is that kind of what I talked about before, if you're talking about doing it from 4 to 7 on certain days, you'll need the lights, but by the end of that period, the
I was
lights
going to
are-
address that one. It was my turn.
Take away the courts for this.
Thoughts?
So we've had the luxury of reading through the contracts for Piranhas, and we've read through contracts for Powerball, so I don't know, maybe I missed the email if this contract was circulated.
I was not sent out because it was not prepared.
Okay.
I don't want to prepare a contract that isn't going to
Yeah.
move forward. But essentially, it wouldn't look identical because it's not a facility lease agreement. It is a recreational instructor agreement, which basically just covers what her duties will be, what she will be supplying, and the expectations, and then the dates and times of her class, along with the percentage breakdown of what the city gets and what the instructor gets.
Who covers the insurance?
Miss Mary will be insured.
She has copies of my insurance, and I have an umbrella for City of Palm Springs too that I pay extra.
Yeah,
$1
so at this
million
point, all of our
liability.
contract instructors that we have in place go through fingerprints and backgrounds. They go through, they provide certifications saying that they're the experts so that they can teach. And then they are asked to provide insurance, naming the City of Palm Springs additionally insured.
And just so I heard right, it's $60 a month?
A month.
We followed the same as the yoga and the karate. We tried to follow the same thing, like a $10 drop-in fee, like so it was about the same as what everyone else was doing. So when we met, we tried to model it after existing classes. And then if it was a drop-in, it was like you get a discount if you did 10, and then if you did a drop-in that day, it was $2 more. That's what yoga does, and I can follow it. And that's what we talked
Hers
about.
is a little bit different because we wouldn't be able to control if we did a punch card, the amount of people that could come to class. So it's $60 a month. It's capped at 24 students. Anything after 24 would generate a waiting list. Obviously, if somebody didn't show up to class and she did have room to accept a drop-in, then they would be sent over to Demuth Community Center where they would buy the purchase the drop-in, hand her the pass, and they would be cleared for that day.
Okay, so in order to do this, you have to go to the community center.
All of her students will have to register through our department, and we'll provide her a roster, and then we'll essentially do the breakdown. So at the end of the month, we will run the report of who's paid, and then we'll send in the report to finance saying this is how much money Mary will get cut.
How do you plan on communicating that out?
We will be designing a flyer and posting it up. It'll be advertised on Facebook. Once our recreation brochure gets completed, the information will be in there as well.
So, do you have a plan for the number of people you'll be turning out of your classes, sort of graduating them out on a monthly or a quarterly basis? Because I'm thinking what this is doing is generating pickleball users. And while we look at this and should think about it, we also need to think about, are we going to have more pickleball courts, or are we going to make more people? Not that I wouldn't want to do the training, but I do want to see if we can align the thought of developing pickleball courts as we're graduating people.
Well, just so you know, there's about 4 people regularly teaching on your courts now.
Are they charging?
They're cash under the table, which Cynthia and I talked about it, and I don't want to be the police person. I just want to have my certificate in hand and point to the sign or have my name on the message board that I am that's what Newport does. These are the certified instructors. I just want to follow the rules, and I want to help support the city with pickleball. There are tons of people that come in. It will be even more huge when the season comes. October, they'll be packed.
Right.
There's just people looking for structure. That's why they come to my round robins. That's a facility use, that's separate, which I think is another agenda item. And you're gonna have a ton of people there all the time anyway. This is just, yes, they can graduate out because there are different skill levels. There's beginners on Monday, then there's 3Os to 3.5s at one time, then there's 4Os and above. So you move to the next group if you get better. Each class has a round robin tournament involved in it so they can play. And mainly it's about structure, which people really want. And I get a lot of requests for that as an ambassador. We don't have any other public place. Freedom Park's under construction and they don't open again till after Nationals, which is gonna be a huge problem. So we are the only public place to play besides Whitewater, which only has 2 courts.
Commissioner Goodman.
And we don't have Ruth Hardy to
So-
send them to anymore either.
So I like it. I think there's no reason not to add pickleball as a lesson or as an instruction the same way we have yoga and the same way we have cards or whatever our activities are. So I'm all for it. And here are the things that I would want to make sure. So 3 things come up to mind. And that is, as season comes, we only have 12 courts. The city council gave us the directive to go to Sunrise, work with our engineers, see what that would look like. Can we get 16 courts? We did hear today that there is $1 million in community money. That was close, our number was close to that for 16 courts. We heard we can use Sunrise Park, providing that there's space for an enlarged library and parking. And so I'm just saying, we have 12 courts, and putting the lessons aside, my instinct tells me during season, those 12 courts will be packed, and we're going to need more courts. So I'm thinking, gosh, during prime time hours, taking away a court or 4 courts for lessons, so that would be a concern. So I'm all for the lessons, I just want to say that. And I appreciate the integrity.
Do you want me to answer that, each concern at once, or wait till you're done?
Wait till I'm done. And I appreciate the integrity. So that's one concern. The other concern I have is what happens to the individuals who are charging privately for now that there is structure that says these are city-run programs and this is the certification. So I would just kind of be mindful and understand what would happen there, right? And so when we talk about space and the other people who are charging privately, and I guess, is there an option to expand outside of Demuth and maybe look at Sunrise as, going back and revisiting and putting 16 courts there, and so that we can increase our size to accommodate everybody.
So as to the space and the crowding, last year when we did our drop-in on Tuesdays, we went in a non-prime time. It was not a problem till about 3 o'clock when the afternoon people came in, and then we would just consolidate down to like 2 or 3 courts. So I roll with the punches, and I just accommodated the public. We don't need to offer an evening class. We were just trying to offer to working people or evening. So we certainly can, non-prime time is from about 12 to 3. So it can just be limited to non-prime time, that's fine. We just did 1 day a week last year, we can do only 1 day a week. I just want to get something in the city rec, something for public. Not everyone belongs to a country club out here. They all have 4 courts, but we just need an option for, and there's a lot of people are asking for instruction, and I tell them, I am not going to do instruction on the courts until I'm certified. So then they go to the other under the table people, or they go.
You being certified.
I guess when Cynthia and I talked, I said, it'd be nice if I had something in my hand and I could go up to the 4 people I know and say, here's some paper, you might want to look into doing this. So that I'm not telling them what to do or being their watchdog. I could just suggest, here's what you're going to need to do to teach here. I don't know. I don't really want to be that person, and I'm not sure if we have a solution, but that problem's happened historically on tennis courts for ages. There are always people teaching on school district and city courts under the table for money. I don't think you should hire someone to police it. That's a lot of money. I just think you already have a sign that says, and if I have some kind of paperwork to me and you're going to have a message board that says certified instructors, here are the classes. I think it's just we're baby steps getting to where, hey, here's a pickleball class because people want that. And it's an experiment, but we can certainly go to non-prime time.
Yeah.
And I forgot what your third concern was, the last one.
The
Oh,
expansion over
I
Sunrise.
keep hearing all these stories how Sunrise is a laugh and it's never going to happen for 5 years. That's what the rumor mill all is the money's going to go to, well, now we know we need bathrooms. We all know we were quiet. We lost Ruth Hardy. Tennis community got that. We're not going to get Sunrise. We all know it, and we're just being quiet and being nice. We're pretty, we're problem solvers. But a lot of the people that play pickleball belong to clubs, too, that are putting in courts. So Fritz Burns is putting in 4 new courts. That's out in La Quinta, though. So I think Sunrise would be great. I went to that city council meeting. None of us are planning on it. I mean, don't worry, you're not going to get a whole lot of pressure because we have very low expectations after we don't get any Ruth Hardy. So, and the round robins, she's only letting me have 8 courts, so you'll have 4 courts for public play. So that shouldn't be a problem for events either, which means it was $145 to rent the courts, now it's $660 to rent the courts for a day. So it's just, if I only have 8 courts, I'm gonna maybe break even, because this is all coming out of my pocket. So I'm okay, I'm still gonna do it, that's my thing as an ambassador. But I will say, Fritz La Quinta's only charging $5 per court, not $11 per court per hour. So, it's just, we should have, people love round robins. They love not getting eliminated. My one in October is already almost full. So I just think it's a service that people really like in a public facility. And as an instructor, I just had a couple questions about lights. I don't want to instruct at night unless I know the lights are safe. I don't want to instruct if there's anything dangerous like windscreens hanging down. And I know I sent an email, but I don't remember where is the closest AED. Because every pickleball tournament and facility has an AED. We have an old population. And if it's at the Demuth gym, I got to be able to send someone down to the gym to grab it and bring it back. And if we're not going to put in a lockbox or something where there's an AED, every pickleball facility that I play, at every tournament I go to, the club has an AED right there. And that's just a concern as an instructor.
Well, actually, at both Ruth Hardy and Demuth, they should be by the courts, because you're right.
Well, in the baseball field, right? I just don't know. We don't have a storage facility or any kind of thing, but if you did put in a message board that's locked, it could be inside there. It could be inside a structure. You know how you break the glass and it's right there. And I think liability-wise, it's worth every penny. I've been at several facilities where people have died. You have an older population. So I think the city needs to protect themselves too, and as an instructor, I'd want to know where's the AED.
So let's talk about timing. I want to make sure that if you charge me $60 a month, and I'm
No, the city is.
Well, whomever, you're getting paid, and I want to make sure I'm going to get my time. So we've got to make sure that we can isolate the courts, and I really want to make sure that we're not going to be, Mary's not going to have to be fist fighting to keep her court time. I have an issue with the 4 to 7s because I only get to go by there generally at 5 o'clock, and the place seems packed well, not during the dead of summer, but that's when I see people playing in the evenings. And it didn't used to be people playing in the evenings. It only used to be in the mornings, and now I'm seeing that there's at least, I thought Thursday was the gay organization that played. Now, maybe
I think they're Wednesday.
Now. Okay.
Well, let's just go ahead and go with, I'm fine with just doing afternoon, non-prime time. That was just, so.
So I want to make a motion I'd like to see a contract, but I'd like to make a motion to proceed forward with developing a contract for the instruction that's certified. I think a pilot is a great idea. Put the hours down and the time, bring it back to us. I think for me, this is absolutely something we should do. Working out the details is something that you'll do in the contract and in our next meeting if you can wait another month.
Well, like I said, I'm an ambassador and I'm here to help you develop pickleball. You guys have known me for over a year now, and it just takes a while. We're getting there. So it's a pilot, you're right.
I just
I
want
will
to,
second that.
So we got to get a motion on the floor, and that's seconded by Charles.
Before
Now we
you
can talk.
guys,
Go ahead.
before you guys vote, what I do want you to consider is none of our other contract classes that we have are at the hot topic capacity that pickleball is. So at some point, I need you guys to decide and give direction on how many instructors are we gonna say okay to? How many tournaments are we gonna say okay to? Is it gonna be on a monthly basis, or are we only gonna allow certain amounts for the year? Because they are popular. What is happening now with our current contract instructors is we really only have one contractor per class style. So I only have one yoga instructor, I only have one karate instructor.
Do you turn anybody away for those classes?
No.
Okay, why don't I just put something together, bring it back for us in October to discuss?
So the contract, though, is just a basic template that the city has in place, so there really isn't going to be any negotiating on what this contract has in it or doesn't have in it. It is our standard legal template that we use. It will just have her information in it along with the class times, and that's it. And all of the just extra legal jargon that's already there.
So I
And is
can
there
put that
anywhere we could
together.
put an amendment that says it's a pilot?
You can
and
do
we
a
can
time- you can
revisit it
select
after
the
so many
timeframe.
months, and then it gives us some time to work through, the popularity and other instructors. The only reason I'm saying that is it's 6:45, and we've been here a long time, and we have other items to go through. And me personally, I don't feel like I can make that decision, so I want to make the recommendation that we get something on paper, we have some time to chew on it, we come back and make that decision in October.
I want to ask one question. Is there anything that we're doing for people who who may have poverty level income? Is there anything that we're doing in other classes? So it doesn't make any
No,
difference if
the
you're.
fees are set by the contract instructors, and we just do the percentage. And whatever the percentage break is what the city brings in.
I
So-
did a voluntary drop-in clinic last year with her approval, and it was just a donation only, so people just came and could play for free.
Okay.
And
So-
unless I just wanted to add, I'd like to leave open for us to think about it, not have to make a decision, myself included, about the times that we offer it for Mary, because I think there's pros and cons. I think there's counterintuitive pieces. I can see the benefits to allowing other people who want to learn coming after work hours because they can't come during the day. And I also want to disincentivize those people who are not playing fair, like Mary is doing, and are charging under the table to do it. They're going to take up courts as well during the day. I'd like Mary to have first crack because she's doing it legally. So I don't want to pull off the table. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, but I'd like for us to, as Ellen is saying, continue that discussion and have that be part of it.
So what exactly is your motion in the second?
So I put a motion on the table that we invite Mary and Cynthia to put together an agreement in addition to the standard contract to the city that outlines the instructions, the times of the days, the mounts, bring it to us for a discussion, can work out some of the finer details so that we can actually either create a direction or a vote at the October meeting.
And that works for the second. All right. Any further discussion? Commissioner Armstrong?
I just understand this is a standard contract, but the person asking for this has also made certain demands of the city for equipment as a condition. And so there's going to be some cost involved. The medical devices, the screening, things like that. Okay, so that's not, but
Suggestion, just
that's
for
not
liability.
conditioned on doing it then.
Well, I don't think anyone would teach without safe, I taught school for 37, you don't teach in a situation where you're gonna be liable. So I think it's just a safety issue. It was a suggestion.
It's a suggestion or a condition, because I'm not sure with that statement that you're going to go ahead if we don't spend the money on those items.
I think that's a good question. I know that, like, I wouldn't teach in a gym that had water all over the floor. It's just a liability thing that the way I was taught as a certified teacher, just safety. You're right, it's expensive. There are funding things or grants, but I can probably work with Cynthia on getting some, maybe there's grants through USAPA for lots of different things. I'm certainly willing to work on donations from the pickleball community for a storage facility or a message board. And the percentage of the money I would hope that comes to the city would go back to maintaining pickleball. I mean, hopefully, I don't know. I assume all the
no.
other constructors, yoga
No,
and
that goes
everybody
through the
also had to
general
go through
fund.
this.
Yeah, no.
Like, didn't the yoga people had to go through this and go a pilot program, right?
Let me also respond. If indeed the information that comes back to us in October has conditions, it's our will to be able to say that those conditions wouldn't continue, wouldn't be included.
But I think separately, if you could check into, do we have the right equipment in parks for the protection, independent of this totally?
So we do have the AED machine, but it is at Demuth Community. One of the things that I would have to do is price out how much these machines would cost to be able to have them both at Ruth Hardy and at DCC. And then can I find it in the budget to purchase?
Do you have any idea of what the cost is?
I don't. But then I would need to talk to the city attorney as well on what is the liability for the city if we just have that out there. Because we don't have staff who are just standing out there with our equipment, and what happens if it's accessed or vandalized and.
Somebody gets electrocuted.
Right.
Well, now that I know there's one at the Demuth Gym, I know I've got to send someone to run down there and get it. I just didn't know where it was.
Well, it's still,
It's open Monday through Thursday
CPR
from
instructor.
7 to 9 p.m. and on Fridays from 7 to 8 p.m. and Saturdays 9 to 1.
You know, we've talked about this for a year, having AEDs, because we've had, at least in recent memory, in the last, I'm talking about the last 12 months, roughly, 2 people die on the courts. So this is not something that is
we gotta hurry up.
just conceptual.
So, we're voting on the motion to bring this contract forward to review it. There is no really moving it into place, so I would say let's take the vote right now. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. And can I work out with Cynthia doing the volunteer donation thing then until this is approved like we did last year? Just so people have a place to go one day a week?
I think so, yeah. I don't think that.
It was a donation-only volunteer kind of thing, and it was a drop-in. And I had your approval last year, right?
All right, moving
It was
forward.
the Tuesday afternoon thing. Well, anyway, just want to know something for the people when they start arriving that want instruction.
Yeah.
My concern is, what is the difference going to be between that and what's already happening at the court? You have Mary who's basically gone through the process she's been asked to do, and now we're in process of finalizing everything, and she's going to get to move forward if you guys decide to approve it, yet the others won't. And so that's essentially going to create a situation for me when I put up the posting saying, Mary is our only certified city-approved instructor. How do I address the others? I know I'm going to have to be.
It says there's no teaching with the exception of,
Certified.
the certified
If you're
instructors.
interested in
So then
teaching.
technically,
No.
she can't do the by donation thing because she is
You're right.
not a certified instructor. If, at this point, until this contract is approved, she is
She's
not a
not.
certified instructor.
Then she won't be able to charge, yeah.
That was, no, I'm just looking for your guidance, but I will tell you, those people are teaching out there every day, so they'll just get more
Well,
clients
there's-
as
We've got
those
people
snowbirds
teaching
get
all
here.
over the park, not just pickleball, we've got exercise equipment, we've got yoga going on, we don't do a thing about any of it, so there's really nothing that we can control, just one sport. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
hoping
say-
we can work with code enforcement to get some tickets out there for doing that, but that is additional staff time as well. And some of these classes don't happen while those code enforcement officers are working. So with the park security that we'll be adding on the weekends, I'm hoping we can address some of these
Some of it,
issues as
okay.
well.
Will the security be able to have that authority to go up and?
Absolutely, but we can't ticket somebody if the community's not willing to come forth and say who.
Well, I don't think we can solve that at this point, and we do need to move on because it is 6:52 and we're way past. I really appreciate everybody staying, but
Thank you, Cynthia, for everything. Thank you.
thank you. Let's move on to the nominations and for the chair and for the vice chair. I'd like to say really quickly, it's been great working with you all for 2 years. I'm not going away. I'm merely just going to be a regular commissioner now, and someone else can take the seat. So I'd like to, what I'd like to ask you to do is to make the nominations. If there's more than one nomination for a role, we will ask both people to talk a little bit about their accepting the nomination and their interests. And I realize I didn't let anybody know that ahead of time, but I think it seems fair to hear why that person would want it. So with that being said, for the chair, what are the nominations?
I nominate Alan for chair.
Alan Bully.
I'll nominate Travis.
Travis.
I'll decline that. I don't really have the time to do it. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Travis. Are there any other nominations? Alan, all in favor of Alan Boley as the chair? Any opposed? Abstain. And opposed? So it's, great. Congratulations. You are the chair. I don't know, do I finish out the election, or are you okay with it? So for vice chair nominations?
I'd like to nominate Johnny Ellen Donato.
Johnny, yes.
And I'd like to nominate Ellen.
Johnny and Ellen. Okay. Any other nominations? Do you both accept?
Yes, I accept.
I'll go with Ellen. I nominate Ellen for vice chair.
So you're also withdrawing? Okay. So, all in favor of Ellen? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ellen, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess I'll finish out real quickly. Commissioners' comments, we'll do a quick round robin. Charles? Nothing. David?
Could I ask for an agenda item for next meeting regarding the hiking trails, dog prohibition, and what's gone on since they did that? I understand there's been some problems, signs being torn down and things. And I also understand when we were being told about it that there was going to be an ordinance potentially drafted, and I don't know what the situation is, whether it's haven't been passed or what have you, what enforcement they have on that. And then I've also heard that there might be some sort of a ranger program or a junior ranger program or something that people are trying to put together. Sorry?
The tribe has a.
Well, I've been told that there might be somebody trying to put together another program. I just didn't know. So could we just have as an agenda item? And
Absolutely.
We'll learn more later.
Great.
And I think you may have already addressed this too, which was regarding, I think you were calling it Whitewater Park. Is that the Prop 68 grant? But it sounds like you won't know any more. And if you do, you'll let us know, so that's fine.
We're hoping by December we'll hear something.
Great.
But as soon as I get a phone call, if we get an interview, I will send out an email and let you guys know.
Thank you.
Jody?
I don't know if it's appropriate to address the gentleman that spoke about the trees. I've never heard about that. Is that something that we're supposed to know about? The shade trees and all the trees that were put in that that are dying?
I reported 7 trees that were placed in Ruth Hardy Park that were dead within a week, and I had sent it to Stacy and sent the pictures of the dead trees. They were replaced within a day or two, but I don't know and they are not, the new ones are not dead, but I don't know that we have to weigh in on the trees that are selected, whether there's an arbor list that is available to us, but
Did we do any, I don't recall us discussing any of it.
ever. Well,
So
And
I just,
Arborvitae came in and told us that every time they take out one tree, they replace it with 2.
2 trees, yeah, but that was about 3 years
year ago?
It was
Year and a
quite a
half,
while
too?
ago, it was before I was here, I'm
That's-
sure. But we could probably ask for some sort of a report on exactly what's happening with trees and what the plan is
I'm
going
sure she
forward.
could give you an update. I just don't know how much the commission would actually get to weigh in on when, where, and how.
Selection, yeah.
But I know that they did discover that it was one particular species that just wasn't surviving, and those have all been replaced. Because it
Okay.
was at a couple different locations that happened.
that's it.
Commissioner Travis?
Yeah, just on that, I thought that there was an urban forest plan and that it had certain kinds of trees the city has in place. You might want to talk to sustainability about that. I did have a question about, I understand maybe we have some new commissioners come on, but what happened to our student commissioner? And if that could get going again? That's
We,
it.
unfortunately, our last student got sworn in and never showed and never came. And we're waiting on Human Rights to put together a selection process that doesn't require the school to offer you up the student that you're going to get, that we would actually go through an interview process. So it is timely that we talk about it again, especially starting the school year up.
One of the things also, I mean, there are private schools too that I think we should reach out to, not just the
Good
public
idea.
school system.
Yeah. Great. Commissioner Caldonado.
No comment. I mean,
issues.
I'm good. I'm a little tired.
Commissioner Goodman?
I've been just sitting here thinking, and Johnny, I had no idea you had interest in vice chair, and I'm actually going to remove myself from the vice chair. And I think you'll be a great leader. Like, I lead enough in my world and in my life, and I think this would be great. And I'd like to support you in that. And so I don't know what that process would be, but I'd like to remove myself.
Well, I'll accept.
Yeah, so I don't know how that gets documented, but I got your back.
Do we have to have another vote?
As long as I can play with
I would
this little
say we
thing.
should- Since we voted once, we should absolutely vote again. So
that's what I'd like to
Commissioner
do.
Goodman has withdrawn and has nominated Commissioner Coladonato. With that being said, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Got that recorded. To Chair Bully, any?
I have no additional tonight.
All right. Thank you guys very much for working with me for the last 2 years. I really appreciate it. And with that, we will adjourn to Monday, October 28th at 4:30 here in the large conference room. Congratulations.